Hello. Hello. Right, we're live. How's everybody doing? Right. Okay. So, I think everything's working. Right, so I'm Arkcard. To anybody who doesn't know me, we're going to be doing a Q&A. Let me just turn this down slightly. Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a Q&A. I will let the dev introduce themselves in just a second. So basically, I'm just going to be playing through one of my campaigns that I've been doing with Mao Ying. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to be in discussions with one of the developers over at CA. And I'm going to be asking him questions and hopefully seeing some of your questions. But just Meow Ying. I call her Meow Meow for short. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing today. And feel free to ask questions. Obviously, I won't be able to read all of them. Hey, Mofufu. But I will try to get to as many as we can while playing and talking. So right, I'll switch over now. Mark can introduce himself. Give me just 1 second. Okay. Mark, you there?
Hey, I'm here.
Okay.
So I'm Mark Sinclair. I'm the lead campaign designer on Warhammer 3. It's really good to be here with you.
All right. You can see the stream okay and everything, right?
Yeah, I was looking at your stream originally. I didn't realize it was there.
Yeah, no, this is over on the Total Wars channel. Hey, Rats,
Nice.
how's it going?
Good.
Right, just to give you a little overview so you know what's actually happening in the campaign. The Bastion right now is secure. I currently own the Snake Gate and the Turtle Gate. I was hoping to own the Dragon Gate, but the faction, I think they're like the protectors of the Bastion, I believe is the faction that normally has it. He confederated them, my evil brother. So now he's got a big swathe of territory in there, including the Dragon Gate. So he's kind of like the weak link right now. But other than that, we're doing pretty okay.
Yeah, it looks good to me. You're allied with him, I think?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
He's not your evil brother, then, is he?
Well, I mean, he's evil in the sense that he's the AI, and the AI tends to not do things that are always helpful. So hold on 1 second. I've lost my army. There it is. I thought it was here. Right. So I've got Mao Ying sieging this bastion, and I was hoping to take it, but unfortunately there are a considerable amount of range units in this territory, and because it's chaos territory, I'm currently taking a lot of attrition damage. So I might have to back off.
Like a good situation. Yeah, you might. Do you have any other armies running around?
Oh, right. Okay. So the reason. Oh, 1 second. So the reason why my my economy is kind of where it is because I have this army here defending the Snake Gate, and I have a third army here defending the Turtle Gate. So they're pretty well defended. Yeah, I don't think any one army is going to be breaking through here anytime soon. So, because it was so well defended, I started pushing back against Chaos. And then I think I might have bit off a little bit more than I can chew. So what I might do, I might search for a rift and try to run back home.
Yeah, you've still got 8 turns of the rifts being open, so yeah, might be a good idea to jump back, or at least, I don't know, I mean, I would say maybe a more gradual push out from where you are, capturing the territory, because you've gone past all the warriors of chaos outside of the bastion, and you're attacking Kairos's faction, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
So what I had done is Kairos basically had I'd taken stuff from him, and then he gave it to a faction that I wasn't at war with, because he's sneaky like that. And then a bunch of other factions started taking stuff as I was like grabbing stuff.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a tricky one to fight against. You really have to, as soon as you encounter him, just go head first into him and shut him down as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing, regarding like Cathay, when you designed, the two lords for this, who was Mao Ying's like main rival supposed to be? Kairos Fate Weaver? Is that who she was supposed to be fighting like the most?
Yeah, I think what we wanted to do is, obviously we usually pick 2 legendary lords per race, and Games Workshop supplied us with all this new content, so it was a case of picking kind of 2 key characters who are sort of yin and yang, no pun intended, who are kind of like opposites to each other. So these characters really stood out to us, and as you see where they start, Miao Ying, Storm Dragon, she's very much defending against chaos and holding the bastion and fighting off Tzeentch. And in the lore that Games Workshop sent us, there was a lot of little sort of tidbits about how Tzeentch had kind of like set up all these cults inside of Cathay's home region. So it was very much a case of, Cathay are defending against chaos, but Tzeentch is the sort of main threat, I guess, and the one that's most sort of successful in infiltrating them. So I think, having Kairos as the main kind of enemy was really sort of a no-brainer for her. And then, like, conversely with Zhao Ming, he's very much focused around the Great Moor and the Ogre Kingdoms. So that's kind of where he starts, and he's very much pushing and pulling against them. So they're both very interesting characters and have completely different start positions, even though they're quite close to each other. They have different enemies and different things to fight against.
Yeah, because I noticed that your focus is pulled in different directions. Although, as her brother, you can actually like make quite good friends with the Ogre Kingdoms if you try to go like through diplomacy. And then I was normally dealing with like the Skaven, some greenskins, and then a few threats from chaos itself. In this one, though, we actually had friends with the ogres until Greasus decided that he didn't like any of that, and has now taken huge chunks of territory from the other ogres. I think one second, let me just get out the Caravan thing. I think he just beat up the Lizardmen. Oh no, he's beating up the Lizardmen right now. And then he declared war on me. So yeah, as you can see here, he's got quite a bit of territory in the mountains, and he's starting to push up north to try to attack me.
Yeah.
He's greedy.
I mean, that's his character. Yeah, exactly. He's greedy. Of the Ogre Kingdom, so
yeah,
makes sense. But yeah, I can see you've got lots of wars going on. So
I've got so many wars. The one thing though I just wanted to talk about is the caravans.
Yes.
Honestly, it saved my butt a bunch of times when I was like really worried about like my economy, and I'd be looking at the caravans and be like, come on, you've only got 2 more turns left. I just need to find some way to like keep my treasury going so I don't hit bankruptcy. And it's a really cool feature, and I like the fact that you have all of the encounters, like the battles, and then the shortcuts that happen with it. The only thing that I was, I guess, not really sad about, but I was hoping for was I wanted to be able to level up the Empire Captain, and the other ones. But other than that, like, I really enjoyed it. And what I didn't realize was each settlement seems to, I haven't gone to all of them, but a lot of the settlements, I know Altdorf has like the Luminarch lens, and
yeah.
What an amazing sword, by the way. If you go to Drakenhof, get the Von Karstein sword, which gives, I think, frenzy and regeneration. Was cool.
We wanted to get unique rewards for, I think, for the settlements. So you won't get, have a situation where you find one settlement that's giving you a load of cash and you just keep sending them there and you get the same events each time. We wanted to really give you a lot of content, a lot of reasons to go to different places and find these special items and special characters, as you just shown.
Yeah. So right now I've got quite a good caravan. I tend the other caravan that I tried to send off gets killed a lot because Greasus has taken over. So like the one thing that I remember reading about is if the territory that your caravan's going through is hostile, the chance of the encounters of being like aggressive encounters, like actual fights, is like extremely high. But if they are allied, I think you basically have like a free pass, right? Like you're not gonna end up with like getting attacked, or it's like a really low rate. So yeah. So pacifying those areas just allow your caravans to actually have like safe passage through those lands, which I thought was really cool.
Very much like a risk reward thing. So yeah, it can be a good thing to send your caravan through a very sort of hostile route, and you'll get big rewards for it. But yeah, it's a dangerous route to take for sure.
So does every settlement that you go to have a unique reward associated with it? Because I haven't been to all of them. I just know of a few.
Yeah, I am not 100% sure on that, but there's definitely at least sort of 6 or 7 of them. So they're all items with powerful effects, so it's worth going to all of them and trying them out.
Try piecing out Greasus. Should help your trade. So Greasus, yeah, he's not easy. So we go to Greasus, right? And because the first thing I looked at was like, hey, I'm a dragon, you're an ogre. Maybe we should like focus on fighting chaos. But yeah, he's minus 60. So I do not have the economy necessary to sate Greasus's hunger, unfortunately, and so that is a no-go. But right now with Mao Ying, so some of you probably haven't watched this. There are things that was introduced called rifts, which are part of the storyline, and they are these things. And what happens is they show up on the map every so often, and they come with a bunch of chaos corruption, depending on which god the rift is associated with. But you use those to go to the realm of chaos, where you can progress the story by getting a demon prince's soul, or you can use them to travel to other rifts, which was a really cool way of, I think with when I was playing Scarbrand, I used it to jump over and like attack the Empire, and then I beat up the Empire for a little bit, and then I jumped over to Cathay, and I went around there and sacked a few settlements, and then I jumped back home. So that's what I'm trying to do now. Mark, when you guys came up with the rifts, was that was part of it when you had like, I know in Model Empires, a lot of the time it's like very big, and when you're worrying about traveling from like one edge to the other, it's going to take you like 20 turns. Is this was like the rifts like a way to combat that, or was that just something that like just a happy coincidence for fast travel?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of both, really. We've kind of experimented with teleportation in previous games, and even in sort of like, I guess it was the Wood Elves DLC where you could jump between glades, and that was kind of received pretty well, and we wanted to really sort of improve upon that and take it to the next level, and we needed to give players a reason to enter the realms of chaos, which it's like in our world it would be us going into hell or something. It's not something that you just do for
I'm just gonna go for a little trip there, tourist.
So adding the rifts was a way of jumping in and out, and also in the lore, you don't just go there on a Tuesday. You really have to march for months and maybe years, and then you sort of finally end up there without really kind of expecting it. So we couldn't really represent that in the game, so we needed this method of being able to jump in and out, and I think the rifts kind of was perfect for that. And as you say, it's a great way of quickly moving around the map and yeah, you can easily jump across the world and start setting up a new sort of home base on the other side of the map. So it's a really cool new way of playing.
Yeah, like I really enjoyed it. I thought when you, because there are certain realms of chaos you can go to which are like quite quick. So for me, the corn one was extremely fast because you just go punch a bunch of people to get up the meter, and then you can immediately do the quest battle. And so when you do that one, you have a lot of time to then use the rifts while they're still there to like hop around and go to like different locations.
Yeah, when you went into the corner, did you pick up any of the special weapons in there?
So, right, I went to grab a few weapons, chainsaw being my favorite. I think a lot of people now who have like looked into it have kind of made chainsaw be the greatest one. But I went in there and it had already been stolen. Someone had taken it, and they hadn't gone back into another round, so Korn hadn't stolen it back yet. So I was out of luck. I think I got one, but right now I've actually got the Blade of Slanesh. So I decided not to use the one I got from Korn on Mao Ying.
Yeah, so this is a really cool thing about the realms. It's not just a case of going in, getting the soul, and then leaving and just progressing the story. Obviously you can do that, but you might find it's actually more beneficial to jump into a realm, take the sort of benefits and the good things, like the swords, powerful magic items that are unique to those realms, and then come out and use that to sort of capture new territory in the mortal world and just not get a soul for that turn.
Yeah.
Obviously that means AI can then get a soul and jump ahead of you, but you might be able to leapfrog them later on. So
yeah, like one of the things that I didn't realize I found out is that you can go back into a realm that you've already got a soul for. So if you see someone getting ahead of you and they're about to go into like a realm where you haven't got a soul and they haven't got a soul, you can purposely follow them and then sabotage them by taking them out during that journey, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, again, it's something that we've done before in Warhammer 2. There was the whole Vortex race, so all the factions are fighting for the same goal, and you can kind of block certain factions. And a common sort of complaint was that you could let them get right to the end and then just sweep the rug out of them, as it were, and then eliminate them and complete all the objectives at the end. So we've really tried to address that by having this kind of really dynamic gameplay where people are constantly going in and out of realms, and you need to really sort of pay attention to who's got which soul and who's in which realm, and try and stop those factions from picking the game for you.
Yeah, because regarding that, like one of the reasons why it seemed to be very easy was because what would happen is you could allow someone in the Vortex to get to the edge of the Vortex map, complete it, and then you'd have a battle to fight them to stop them from doing it, and that would remove them from the race completely.
Yeah, exactly.
What happened? Because I haven't actually experienced it yet. But what happens now? Oh, the game's a bit loud. Oh, okay. I'll put that down for you. So what happens now when another faction gains all the other souls? Do you do a fight to defend, or is it just like, no, that's it? You've lost the campaign.
Yeah, so the way it works is everyone is trying to capture or rescue Urson for themselves, and he's being kept in the Forge of Souls, which is in the center of the Realms of Chaos. So once a faction gets all 4 souls, they can make their way to the Forge of Souls and take on Be'lakor, who's the main villain of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So once the AI does that, you'll get a mission to kind of intercept them, and there'll be a rift on the Forge of Souls that appears, that they'll be racing towards. So you need to basically go into that rift, get to the Forge of Souls before them, and intercept them. And if you win a battle against them there, that will sort of knock them out, but not in the same way as the Vortex, because, as you say, we had complaints about that and have tried to sort of address that. And now I think it's like a 15-turn cooldown before they can go in again.
Okay.
But they will keep trying to do that because that is the ultimate goal. So you really need
Right.
to pay attention to that now.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, so they knocked us out completely. Hey, quick head taker. Today's, discussion, I guess, will just be focused on current content. I'm sure later on there will be discussion regarding, like, the future content and stuff, but right now we're just, like, focusing on, the content that's going to be in the game on release. So I don't believe we can find out anything regarding, like, future roadmaps or something. Unless I'm wrong on that, Mark.
Yeah, obviously we're just talking about what we've got coming out on February 17th. But there's going to be a lot more new, exciting content coming, as there was with Warhammer 1 and 2, so yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that.
Awesome. So, right, here's one change that someone might have noticed when in that battle that we just did. So we attacked the Zinch army that was attacking the Greenskins who owned this location. Some people who have been watching the streams might notice that the location that we took was actually Kairos Fate Weaver's start location. And the Greenskins actually joined us in fighting the demons who were sieging them. So one of the big changes in this is that neutral factions that share a common enemy with you will reinforce you when you are attacking them if they are able to. Could you tell us a little about how that change came around? Because it's very different to how Game 2 played out.
Yeah, it was something that we had in old games. You know, when two factions share a common enemy, and you know, you attack one enemy and there's another faction that's also at war with them nearby, they have the option of joining you. And we thought, you know, that's a great way of introducing more gameplay to battles, really, and more big battles, more battles that have other races in them. It just seemed like a no-brainer, really. I think it really adds a lot more gameplay to the battles.
Yeah, I think one of the things that surprised me is I was playing Scarbrand, and when Scarbrand uses one of his chaos abilities, he can summon an army that will attack him, or one of his factions, and then he can do that to like increase his like rampage-esque meter. I can't remember exactly what it's called.
Yeah.
And what happened was there was an army that was right next to me, and I was like, if I could just have some more movement speed, I'll be able to attack them. And so I thought, okay, I'll summon an army, fight that army. That will give me extra campaign movement speed, and then I will be able to attack this army. I was very surprised when the army decided to reinforce the army that I had summoned, and I was not quite prepared for it. Yeah, so that's how I found out about it. But yeah, I was just like, oh, okay, I'll fight this small army, and then bam, another 20 stack just decided to join in.
It's chaos.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, whoops, note to self, put units on defense mode.
Apollo Reignited in the chat says, in the multiplayer campaign, is everyone forced into a military alliance like in 1-2? Or do we have to actually use diplomacy between players now? So, as you probably know, we've got 8-player campaign now, and that is up to 8 players, so you can have any combination of numbers between 2 and 8. And we've given all the options, so you can have any combination of teams, a free-for-all if you like. You could have, you know, 3 players in a free-for-all, 2 players in a team, and then the remaining players in another team. So it's totally up to the players how they create that lobby.
How hard was it to actually introduce the simultaneous turns, by the way?
Yes, that was a big thing. At first, we were just sort of experimenting, prototyping more players and seeing how that worked, and we thought that, you know, having 4 or 5 players was just taking too long, and we were kind of forcing ourselves to auto-resolve the battles, and we thought that's not really what Total War is. So yeah, simultaneous turns was kind of a no-brainer, and yeah, it was a big chunk of work, and our campaign programmers and network programmers had their work cut out, and they've done a really amazing job. So massive shout outs to them, and yeah, hopefully it's something that is going to be in more Total War games to come, and bigger and better improvements along the way.
Yeah, I was because I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but one of the things that was first asked when we the content creators were talking about it was wondering what happened if you're trying to you're at war with somebody and you're trying to chase them down. It was just and the response was whoever goes first gets to get away. So if you're being chased by someone and you're trying to escape from them, you just got to be quicker on the draw to move your army away from them, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean it's simultaneous, so whoever has the fastest finger. We were a bit worried about that at first, but actually I think in practice it doesn't actually occur as much as we were worried about, so it's not too bad. But again, if players do sort of struggle with that, they can just switch back to sequential turns, which has its benefits as well.
Yeah. By the way, Chad, I know Awesome said that Mark's volume was a little bit low. I've turned that up. Is it better now? Can you fight a battle where you're being sieged and retreat back to a city for a draw, like Medieval 2? Somehow it was disabled in Warhammer 2. The only way that I know of to obtain a draw is if the timer runs out while in a siege battle.
Yeah.
Any chance of achievements for individual legendary lords as opposed to races massively increasing? Unfortunately, with this Q&A, I would be unable to answer that question. Yeah, that would be a future content change, so I have no idea, unfortunately.
Can you switch between modes of multiplayer during a campaign, or is it set from the beginning? Yes and no. So if you're in a team, you're set in that team. But if you do a sort of free-for-all mode, you can set up alliance during the campaign and cancel them. So yeah, we try to get as much flexibility as possible. Will old Empire settlements get the siege rework as well? Yes. So we haven't reused any of the siege maps. They're all new, and Empire, Dwarfs, Vampire Counts, etc. are all in this map. So yeah, there's new siege maps for everyone, and they're all awesome.
Yeah, I also noticed choke point maps seem to have been reworked. I don't know if I haven't seen an old choke point map, but I've seen a few new ones. I've also seen bridge maps now, which was a surprise. So have you guys completely done away with all of the old maps, or are there still some?
I believe this map has completely new maps across the board. There are some areas that are, like the Empire was in Warhammer 2 as well, but we've made new maps for that area. I think that was kind of a no-brainer for us, really. I was going to answer, did Cathay settlements have lore behind their names? I think that's a question for Games Workshop, because they created the map, and we followed their directions there, so I imagine they probably did.
This one, I don't know if you can answer this, because it's not future content, but it's more regarding the partnership with Games Workshop. So my understanding was, apart from a few units, like for instance Madame Silostra and the Royal Hippogriff Knights, I believe every unit in the game is just a Games Workshop creation that's been brought to life by CA, right?
Yeah. With Silostra for the Vampire Coast, we needed 4 characters for that downloadable content pack. So that was a case where there was a kind of gap in their lore that we were sort of comfortable filling, and they were happy to do that as well, which I think is a really good sign of our working relationship. But yeah, generally we kind of want to we want to make Warhammer as it is in the tabletop. So we don't want to kind of create our own factions and units and things like that, because it's not really authentic. I mean, if given the chance and we're sort of careful with it and we work alongside them, then that's great. But yeah, generally we're trying to be faithful to them and producing what we've played with on the tabletop. I think that's really the goal.
Yeah, so like the map, obviously I know with say more Empire's map, I know just due to I imagine it was like logistical reasons and just how far things would be if the map was like true to the Warhammer map. So I know the map can be like a little bit squished and stuff, but the locations themselves are all based on locations in the lore, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we have hundreds of map references that they've given us, and ones that we've taken from the army books. It's something that I've pored over for hours over the year. So yeah, we've represented them, and they've had to sort of create new things for us, because there's been cases where there's been a settlement, or, you know, we've needed to put a settlement in the map, and there hasn't been any sort of lore for that. But obviously, everything in their maps isn't everything that would be in the world if it was an actual place. So they've been kind enough to sort of flesh out certain things for us, which is really great.
That's really cool. Is how do you go about deciding what maps, like what locations will actually be in that place? Because obviously, like some places will have like a lot more villages on the maps than other places, and so I guess you'll have to be like, oh, okay, we'll pull a settlement in there, but not something else. Because I think like Ubersreich, for instance, I don't think was in the original map, and it now is in more Empires.
Yeah, it's a case of kind of balancing between having enough settlements. You know, if you imagine the map as a big grid, you want X number of settlements dotted around, so you've got things to capture and fight over. But again, we don't want a sort of densely populated map where you're never fighting land battles. So something we've changed in this game is making the settlements a bit more spaced out and having some larger distances to kind of promote those land battles and ambushes and things like that. But yeah, it's kind of a case-by-case basis. Depends on the geography and the map layout.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
They're saying turn it up now. It's too quiet.
Yeah. So here's a problem that you'll have with Total War Warhammer games. When you're zoomed out, it's too quiet. But as soon as you zoom in, the volume of battle goes right up. So it's probably fine, and you probably could hear it okay if I was zoomed in. But yeah, if I go a little bit too close to the combat, it'll be too loud, I'm sure. Do old world races from previous games like Skaven, when AI plays them, have access to their DLC units? You'll often see, Skaven using like Rattling Gunners and stuff. DLC unit.
Yeah, we've got all the content that was in Warhammer 2 in this game, so there's a lot of stuff to fight against.
So I don't know if you can answer this, but I was just a curiosity of mine. So there are certain legendary lords from Game 2 who like pop up in the game, like Sniksh is there, Altdorf is in the map, Ungrim Ironfist, Manfred, and now in some of the locations where you would kind of like expect them to be, or some are not, like Sniksh for instance being in Cathay. And they have like a smaller role, I guess. Like Sniksh doesn't have like that many settlements. But then there's other people who are missing who could have been. Like I think Malice, for instance, isn't in here, and who else? I think there's somebody else who I think could be, like, I guess Dryker could potentially be there. Was there a reason why some made it and some didn't make it where they would have been?
Yeah, I think the goal was to give the player variety across the whole map, and like in the case of Malice, it could be argued that he goes there, but then if we put him there, there's no Lizardmen there. I think sticking lizardmen in there is a great way of giving ogres and Cathay, if you get to that point, something to fight against. So yeah, it's just a kind of a balancing act of variety, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So it was just there wasn't any particular reason. It was just like a variety reason, basically. The spice of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does Nakari have any opportunities to fight Tyrion or Teclis or Malekith in the main campaign map? Well, this is the main campaign map, but those factions aren't in the main campaign map, so fortunately, Nakari will have to go without his elven souls for a while yet.
Yeah, unfortunately, no high elves or dark elves. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. Although, I don't know how much I can say about that. If you're not allowed to play Slaanesh yet, but you might see some high elves when you play it. Then, no dark. Actually,
that's not true. There are dark elves.
There are some dark elves. Yeah, you've probably already seen them. There's a few dark elves, and there's wood elves, of course. So there are elves to fight against.
Yeah. So I noticed. Well, the only time that I've actually seen the dark elves was when we did sea treasure battles. Rather than having the vampirates, it was the dark elves that we were fighting against. Now, is that just there's going to be like a mix of dark elves and vampirates, or is it just dark elves now? Because I've only fought against the dark elves so far in Game 3.
Yeah, so at the moment it's dark elves, and that, again, kind of a variety thing. But yeah, we haven't got any vampire coast in the map at the moment, but that's something that we will be looking at in the future, perhaps. Again, this is kind of a living and breathing product that's going to be updated over time. So,
yeah,
your favorite faction isn't there just yet. Watch this space; it might come later.
Chaos Dwarfs. The amount of people who are hoping for Chaos Dwarfs, and they're looking at the main Chaos Dwarf settlement that's on the map, and they're like, Chaos Dwarfs, 100%. Yeah, I mean,
there's orcs there at the moment, and who knows what it's going to hold for them.
Well, clearly this must have happened after the end times, and Grimgor's already been there and has destroyed the Chaos Dwarf Empire. So I guess they're gone now, gone and forgotten.
Let's move on.
Yeah, how hard was it, by the way, to come up with like all of the architecture for the different factions and the minus elements? Because obviously in Game 2, when you fight a minus element, it was just like a flat ground, like an open battle map. And now every minus element has its own like semi-siege map, as it were.
Yeah, it's a massive task to get all this architecture and content into the game. There's so much reference material in all the army books and the art that Games Workshop have produced. Something cool about Chaos is that they share a lot of the maps, but they're all visually extremely different. They've all got different creep. So if you play and this is true for every settlement map as well. So if you fight at Altdorf and it's corrupted by Slaanesh, it's not going to look like Altdorf normally would. It's very purple. There's tentacles and spikes and things all over the map.
Wait. Sorry. Do you mean the battle maps are different, or do you just mean the campaign map?
The battle maps should be different as well. They are different on the campaign map as well.
I didn't spot that. That's really cool. How was it? So yeah, how do you even go about doing that, where the corruption actually impacts the way the map looks?
Well, with a lot of time and dedication from artists who are very good at this kind of thing. Yeah, it takes a long time. We've got concept artists who kind of slave over this and produce content, and then the artists go and make it.
Oh, that's cool. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing that, because I did notice, and I didn't know if it was just me. I think the one time I noticed something was normally when I looked into the sky, and I noticed the sky was like colored different But I didn't know if that was just that one map, or if there was like another reason for it. But I guess that's due to the corruption.
Yeah, I think the corruption influences the skybox as well.
That's awesome. Right, I've got to. I'm trying not to get my siege equipment to hit my own units in the back, which is always a problem with Cathay's multi-rockets.
Yeah.
Is there ununified PC play? Steam players can play against Window players? Oh.
Yeah. So obviously we're releasing on Steam, Windows Store, and Epic, and yeah, they can all. There is crossplay between them.
There you go.
The only thing I think is that the leaderboards aren't shared.
I actually haven't messed around with the leaderboards, but it sounds like that's something that people would be interested more in. So, are they? How would that work? Like, how would that affect the leaderboards then?
From what I understand, it's basically just for the rank battles. You've got a different leaderboard for each platform.
Right. Okay. Also, I've got to ask, is there a reason why pink horrors don't split into blue horrors?
Yeah, I think that decision was made early, based on balancing.
Oh, okay. So was it something that was being like tried, and then it was just like, yeah, that's because I imagine in order to do it, the blue horrors that spawned would have to be, I guess, not very powerful, which would then make using the blue horror like kind of pointless.
Yeah, and we wanted to get as much depth out of the rosters as possible, so having different units that you play with, you know, pink horrors, exalted pink horrors, and the blue horrors was kind of a key thing that we wanted to do early on.
Right. Whoever designed this, I'm both happy and mad about it. But whoever made it so that the AI uses the magic better now in Game 3, my armies do not like this. No one wants to see their armies getting wrecked by the AI being good at magic now. Like, it's great, but yeah, no, they can be extremely potent with it. It was funny when I first came across a Zinch Lord, and I thought I had it because like he ambushed me, but I thought with like the forces that I had, I was going to be absolutely fine. And the AI actually put all of its units up on the hills, which basically overlook the ambush location, and it just rained magic on me and range attacks on me, and just ripped my army to pieces. I didn't stand a chance. I was torn between being really happy with it, but also very upset.
Yeah, I think the battles are trickier now with the improved AI. Somebody asked about vassals. I can't find the message now, but the question was, can factions vassalize other races, essentially? And yes, that is a feature in some cases. You'll see a lot more of that with Slaanesh when you play as them.
Ah, good old Slaanesh. I think Slaanesh is next week. We'll be able to showcase some of the stuff that's going on with that.
Yeah, we've talked about some of their features before, so I'm not purposely being coy about it, but yeah, I think it'll be fun to play with them.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's helpful is that obviously the Demon Prince was one of the first factions we were able to show off, and there are a few shared features between Slaanesh and the Demon Prince.
Yes, that is my favourite feature in the game, I think. Being able to seduce enemy units on the pre-battle screen, and that's something that yeah, the Demon Prince and Slash both share.
Yeah.
So really cool.
It was funny. I was so with the Demon Prince, I remember coming across I think it was like an Empire settlement, and I was attacking the settlement, and it looked like it was going to be quite a tough fight. Obviously, I've got no range units as in that army that I had, and they had like mortars, but I was able to seduce the 2 mortars that they had. So completely removed their siege capabilities and gave them to myself, which was interesting. That massively turned the tide of that fight.
Yeah, that's why I like it so much. It's
Yeah.
you don't take the unit and use it to fight against them. You can just do it to sort of neutralize them, which is
I really love the siege rework, but have mixed feelings about the magically appearing ladders. Kind of makes the walls feel less impactful. Any reason to stick to that mechanic?
I think it's kind of it's a difficult one, because if we wanted to have the old system, that you might see in Rome 1, where you have units carrying ladders, think about the number of units that are in the game and the amount of animations that we would have to create for that. It's kind of such a huge task that we have to think about the best way of implementing some of these features. And I think the end result, gameplay wise, is kind of the same. So it's one of those things that we had to take that path, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the things, for instance, that I thought about is there are a lot of ways, obviously, that you can have it with the animation for them to like get up onto the walls and scale. Like in 3 Kingdoms, they use grappling hooks. But like you said, with such versatility in units, it's quite a minor thing just to have like might as well just be a ladder if it's going to be something, I guess. But I guess it's this it's a function over form, I guess you could say that. But I function well with all the different variety you've got.
Yeah, I would say so.
So one of the things that I know a lot of people have praised massively is the new UI for items.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. The one thing that does tend to pop up though is obviously in game 2 and 1, it took a turn before items were equipped. Whereas now it's instantaneous. You just click on that item and your lord or hero gets the item, which then people immediately decided on, would that be too strong, able to like switch units between like lords and stuff, like for each battle. Is that something that you considered and just decided that it was better this way?
Yeah, I think it actually came from when we were actually developing the Demon Prince. So they're a customizable character, which means you're going to be wanting to pick and choose and switch between different body parts and different weapons quite quickly. And we were originally sort of playtesting with quite long cooldowns. You'd equip a head, for example, and that would kind of be locked in for a few turns. And we quickly found that wasn't particularly fun. We wanted to be able to switch out and react to what the enemy was doing, and that kind of rolled itself out into the magic items as well. As you say, the UI's massively overhauled now, so you can see your whole pool at a glance, and as you're doing now, you can fuse items together, which is a really good way of reusing some of the lesser quality items together.
Yeah, fusing items was the one thing that I thought was great. Because obviously, oh wow, that weapon's really nice. Yeah, I'll take that. Generation, thank you. Because obviously, there were a bunch of times where you'll accumulate a bunch of items, but they wouldn't either fit what you were trying to achieve, or you just didn't have anyone who could use it. And then obviously, as you progress and get some of the rarer items and stuff, you'd have all these other ones which you couldn't really do anything with. So now being able to fuse them, and then even with the blue ones, you can still fuse 2 together to get like another random blue. I thought that was really helpful, just to have something to actually do with those items.
Yeah, definitely. This game's not about just new features everywhere. We also wanted to add a lot of quality of life improvements. So yeah, magic items was a big one that we wanted to improve.
Oh, I just saw it there. So Outposts. How did that come about?
It was part of community feedback, really. It kind of stemmed from people wanting more features in diplomacy, and we completely reworked diplomacy for Three Kingdoms, and that went down really well. So we took, the best bits from that, things like region trading, quick deal, the improved UI, and then built upon that. So we really wanted to turn it up to 11, really, and take the kind of war coordination features that we had in Warhammer 1 and 2 and build upon that. So yeah, Outposts is a big one. Being able to recruit your allies' units, being able to take control of their armies for a few turns and play with them for yourself. If the ally's not doing exactly what you want to do, you can do it for yourself, which is a really cool feature.
Yeah. I know with like the Outpost there is I think you can have 4 units recruited via alliances for any one army, I believe. Are there any other limitations on the units you can gain through your allies apart from just the 4?
You won't necessarily be able to get every single unit that particular faction can get. Some of the really high tier units are restricted in that sense. But yeah, other than that, 4 units per army. Doesn't need to be 4 from one ally. You can have 1 unit from the Empire, 1 from the Dwarfs, and 1 from Cathay, or whatever. So yeah, really, it's a really good way of kind of covering for some of your army's weaknesses. If you're playing Khorne, for example, you don't necessarily have any ranged units except for some of the artillery, I think it is. So you can recruit some of those into your army, and yeah, as I say, it's a great way of fixing some of those weaknesses.
Yeah, I think one of the best times or best recruitments that I was able to get was I played as Nurgle, and I got an alliance with Throt, and then got Plague Claw Catapults, which for Nurgle's army was a great addition. Because normally he's quite slow, and normally you have to go to the enemy. Whereas with the artillery, I was able to make them come to me, and then obviously having the blob that he is able to force the enemy into like these long drawn out attacks. I was able to get them stacked up, that infantry, and then just bombard them with Plague Claw Catapults, which was glorious.
Yeah, I like playing as Kislev and getting some of the Empire and Dwarf artillery in early, so you can siege some of the cities.
Alright, these ogres are trying to get through, but luckily, this, by the way, this is one of the swords from the Realm of Chaos, the Realm of Cain. So I've just stopped that unit from being able to move. Although I didn't quite get them before they were able to make contact. Warhammer 3 races have their own OST when battles against them. What is the reason behind Auto Resolve being so punishing in Game 3? Oh.
Well, obviously we want to encourage players to be fighting their battles, because that is half of the game. So, yeah, sometimes Auto Resolve can be more punishing than fighting it manually. Somebody's asking, who is this guy? So, for those who've just joined, I'm Mark Sinclair, I'm the lead campaign designer. So, just taking questions here from Arkcard and some chat.
Yeah. The one thing I noticed with Auto Resolve as well is it seemed to be in a similar scenario. It used to be more forgiving when I checked it out on lower difficulties. So, is that just me assuming it was easier or more forgiving on easier difficulties, or is the Auto Resolve actually different depending on what difficulty you play?
It does have modifiers based on the difficulty that you're playing at.
Oh, okay. Right. Now, is that campaign difficulty, or is that battle difficulty? You know?
I'm pretty sure it's campaign difficulty.
Oh. Let's try and kill that lord there, trying to run away. I love that we've encouraged to fight battles rather than auto-resolve, but sometimes there's 2 stacks getting decisive defeat from an enemy army of 4 units. Intended? I haven't actually seen something like that. I know, like from my experience, that crazy stuff like that has happened in, like, say, Game 2. But I haven't seen anything like that in Game 3. Not to say that it hasn't happened. I think there can be strange things. But I imagine, Mark, that the auto-resolve calculations are quite intense, I guess, for use of a better word.
It's complex.
Yeah, complex. There we go. Yeah.
How many units are in the game already? And it's not just the units. There's so many abilities that units can have. So many different skills and items that characters can have. So unfortunately it's never going to be 100% perfect. Like obviously in an ideal world we'd like to simulate the battle perfectly, but yeah, unfortunately we need to release the game at some point, otherwise we'd be here for years.
Oh, one other question. So with the changes to reinforcements, one thing I noticed is obviously if you kill the army off before the reinforcements arrive, you win that battle, which I thought was great. And then just because I guess I'm me, I wondered how far I could push that. And what I found out is if there's multiple armies and you see the weakest one, so sometimes you'll see like two armies that all have like 20 regiments within them. And then there's like a third lord who might have just been like spawned, and he's trying to recruit, and you got the opportunity to attack. If those other 2 armies happen to be in the march stance, and then you quickly snipe out the lord before they get a chance to enter, I noticed they died. Is that something that was intended, or is that just I guess the cause of like the old mechanics where they were in the fight, and because they've lost and they're in the march stance, they can't retreat, so they're gone now?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think there are penalties to being in march stance, obviously, because it's such a powerful thing to be able to move so quickly. So I'm not 100% sure, but I can definitely check that out.
Okay.
Because yeah, it might not be intended, but I will have a look
Yeah,
after this.
because it was funny because I know like we were doing it with my stream, and it was actually I think this campaign, and they were attacking Snakegate, and it was like 2 massive Kurgan, I think Kurgans, right? Yeah, the Kurgan warband armies, and there was one, but the actual one sieging it was like this teeny tiny little guy. And I think they just moved in the march stance, so I was like, watch this, chat, and I managed to beat him before the reinforcements came. And yeah, it just killed them all, and I was just like, oh man, I'm so happy, otherwise I was going to lose the gate. But yeah, I didn't know if it was just something that obviously, you know, like, because I know the only time an army can reinforce and lose and not die while in the march stance is if they are garrisoned. So I didn't know if that was just kind of like intended or not. So I thought I would check it out.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to you on that because I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, right. I am going to teleport back into my territory. That's grand cost of 1,000 gold. And then beat up this Slanesh army that's just spawned. Any reason there was no unit formations like shield walls, etc. for units in Total Warhammer compared to Three Kingdoms and other games? They made melee infantry much better in Three Kingdoms.
We wanted to kind of focus on Lord abilities, so you'll find that most units don't have abilities, but there are some. Again, it's a balancing act of how many things do we want the player to be controlling in a battle. There's, you know, most battles you've got 20 units, and like as you can see in this battle we're looking at now, you've got a lord and a hero with 6 spells each, and their own battle abilities. So having different formations for all the units is arguably overkill, and you've got the 2 army abilities on the right there. So yeah, it's a case of picking what abilities are most useful, I think, and most fun.
I was curious because whenever that came up, because obviously people are used to like certain formations that they've had in like previous Total Wars, and also being able to dismount, for instance. And the one reason that I thought, or like I just made an assumption, was because you didn't have it in the tabletop. And I know with Game 1 there was a lot of influence from the tabletop for Warhammer there. So I always thought it was just like that was like the main reason.
Yeah, I think maybe it's on a unit by unit basis. Obviously, we want to be, as I said earlier, as faithful as possible to the tabletop game.
Yeah, because I remember, like, for instance, the Bretonians had that formation in the tabletop, and they do have it in game as well. Someone else asked regarding weather effects, like day and night battles that have been like other Total Wars. Was that something that was just decided like not to be put into the game, or was there like another reason why that never made it into this franchise?
I think that was a decision we made all the way back in Warhammer 1. It's something we looked at, but I think the most sort of, when you think about, say, the vampire counts and Sylvania on the campaign map, you don't really think about the day and night. Like in your head, it's kind of always night. All the sort of provinces and areas in the map have this very distinct visual style. And I think having that day and night cycle would kind of potentially water that down a bit. If you see Sylvania, you know, in bright sunshine, it's not going to really look right. So I think
why is Manfred's head so shiny? Oh, the sun's out.
We've had. So yeah, that really kind of dictated that, I think.
Oh, okay.
Do we have a release date? Yes, we do. It's the 17th of February, so very, very soon.
It would be dope to make it so Vampire Corruption makes it always night somehow. Well, Manfred did do that during the end times, but it required a whole bunch of magic. It's not that easy. Any reason for corruption damage? For corruption to still deal attrition damage rather than affect areas of armies beneficially for own race or negative for other races? It seems to punish some races more than others, including my favorite, vampires.
So it does have beneficial stats as well. If you fight in areas that have a bit of corruption, specifically from the demons, that can actually be a really beneficial thing. But yeah, it kind of makes logical sense that if you're walking through an area that's plagued by Nurgle, some of your men are going to die, which I think is a good thing, both narratively and in-game gameplay terms. But there's ways to get rid of corruption. So corruption's a lot kind of more spiky as well in this map because of the rifts that pop up. That might be why some players are struggling with attrition. It's, if a Nurgle rift appears, suddenly there's going to be a lot of Nurgle attrition there, but you can go and close the rift to sort of shut it down quickly.
The Kossars, the Armored Speared Kossar is in the game, in the base game. I'm not too sure why you're not seeing it in guides. I'm pretty sure it's in the base game.
Can you units as Cathay, for example? So that this is going back to the allied recruitment feature. There are some hard limits in diplomacy. So demons are automatically at war with human factions. So Khorne and Cathay are permanently in a war. It wouldn't make sense for them to be doing diplomacy and recruiting each other's units, unfortunately. Although Slaanesh, not actually at war with everyone. They're all about seducing, so they can do some limited diplomacy. So that's a cool feature for them.
Attack in unison! Fight as one!
Right now, I'm just trying to close down the rift, which is why I'm fighting this Slaanesh army. By the way, just a quick question regarding the Demon Prince. So obviously his main feature is getting gifts from the Chaos Gods, which come in the form of like body parts and weapons. The only the thing I was curious about when I got my hands on him was, could he use islands? And then I found out that he couldn't. I know obviously with some islands, like with the armor and stuff, there's a reason, but was there a reason why he can't use like weapons that are available to like the other heroes, I guess, and lords?
Yeah, it was a case of he can equip his own weapons. So he's got, you know, swords and two-handed weapons as well, and they visually change. So it wouldn't really make sense for him to equip, you know, a Bloodthirster's axe and then have the sort of standard weapon, like magical item, which would kind of like contradict that. So that was something that we chose to do with the Demon Prince. But obviously all his characters can equip the items that you will get with him. So if you win a battle and he unlocks an item, you can put that item onto a hero or another lord.
Yeah. More Empire's campaign. The good guys, Empire, House, and Dwarves. Well, Order. Always seem to win. Is this possible to balance this more in Warhammer 3? Well, unfortunately, that would be... So, just to everybody who's new here, we're only talking about stuff that's actually currently in the game. So while we won't be able to talk about, you know, the combined map once the other factions make it into it, I can, I guess, talk about how you guys go around trying to balance so that when you're playing multiple different campaigns, what do you guys do to try and make it so the experience for the player is different, so it's not always one side winning, like, again and again and again?
The core sort of pillar of Total War is that it's a sandbox, so we want different factions to win, and I think you'll see that in the Chaos campaign. We talked about it earlier, how all the different races are trying to claim these souls from the realms and then capture or rescue Urson for themselves. And in our sort of playtests, we've seen that anyone can race ahead and do that. We've got a system of auto runs where we basically have the game running without player input, and then that can be run, you know, by hundreds of PCs overnight, and then we can collate those bits of data and see which factions are overperforming, which are underperforming, and then tweak the numbers, and then run it again the following day and see how that pans out. So I think we've kind of hit a good balance of different factions performing in different games. So there's huge amounts of replayability. If you play as Khorne one day, you'll get a completely different experience to the next, because the AI's performing differently, and you know, they're picking different fights and entering different realms at different times. So yeah, tons of different ways to play.
Cool. By the way, does the faction that the player chooses to play as have an impact? Oh wow, I didn't even see this army. Yeah, does the faction that the player chooses to play have an impact on the AI's I guess aggressiveness?
Hi.
So for instance, if I play as say Cathay, would say Kairos be more aggressive with their attacks than say if I was playing as Nurgle? Or would Kairos potentially still perform the same way, just against the other Cathay faction rather than against the player?
Yeah, it depends on how you're playing as well. As you kind of expand and grow bigger, the AI is going to react to that and treat you as a threat. So if you're expanding rapidly, they're going to be more aggressive towards you to try and stop that. And that kind of changes throughout the game. There's a system kind of under the hood called faction potential, and that is kind of a measure of the faction's strength and how likely they are to capture territory and win battles and things like that. And all the different factions are using that as a sort of measure of different faction strength, and the player does factor into that as well.
Oh, okay. That's actually interesting. I didn't. Because I noticed that there was like an icon on diplomacy, and it actually told you what that faction considered to be their biggest threat.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the feature.
Yeah, that's kind of the player-facing side of it. As I said earlier, we've got lots of different things that are in diplomacy that are there to kind of make the player's life easier. So it's easier to see who sees you as a threat and who's more likely to ally up with you.
Okay. One of the things that I know a lot of people don't necessarily know about, but they know that it's there, but they don't know like the full mechanics of it, is on the different difficulties, the AI gets handicaps in order to make them more challenging for the player to deal with. Could you go into a little detail regarding exactly what those handicaps are? Because I know without like going into the game files, you don't. I don't believe the game actually gives you that information.
Yeah, we have actually made that a bit more visible. So when you start a new campaign, there's a better way of selecting difficulty, and that kind of explains exactly what bonuses the AI is getting both in the campaign and the battle. There's things like public order bonuses and bonuses to reductions, I should say, to their upkeep, so they're paying less money. It's just a good way of sort of gently tweaking things that is going to give the player a bigger challenge, and hopefully, yeah, that's more visible to the player now.
Okay. Right, I got into a really unlucky situation where they're attacking me from this side of the fort, but the AI's reinforcements are on the other side. So I've got to try and dedicate my army here, deal with this guy's forces, and then once I've dealt with them, I'm hoping to then fall back to this point, which I'm spending my resource points in to like reinforce, and get back in time to defend it before the reinforcements get in there. But I don't know how it's going to play out. That's my hope, at least.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're not going to be able to clean them up before they come on to the field.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the thing is, there's a lot of pink horrors, which obviously aren't the greatest fighters, but the AI, it's forced to send units onto the wall, and normally it prioritizes sending like melee units onto the wall. But as soon as it runs out of melee units, which obviously it's got none here, it will send its range units in, and hopefully my melee units will be able to devour those pink horrors. When will you guys get information on Ogre Kingdoms? I believe that is... I want to say it's around the 14th, I think. Champion, I can't talk about that kind of information because we don't know it yet. So any questions that you have just have to be regarding like the base game as it is, rather than early installation stuff.
My mind is ready.
Oof, one thing though is these Screamers of Zinch are a problem. Right. Now, I've never done this before, but I'm hoping to get one entry point. I don't think the computer will fall for it.
Pre-pending battle screen, locking players from campaign map in co-op. Something can be done about it for more smooth gameplay. So, what he's talking about here is if you're in a multiplayer game and a player fights a battle, everyone is involved in that battle. It's kind of a limitation of the game itself. So if you're fighting a battle and other players are still doing stuff on the campaign map, they're going to be able to just walk in and capture your territory while you're busy fighting. So if we wanted to change that, it really requires kind of a completely different style of game. So unfortunately not for Warhammer 3, but maybe in the future it's something we could be looking at. but we've taken steps to make that experience more fun. So even though one player is fighting that battle, the other players can still get involved. So you can choose to fight as the AI, or you can support that player, and they can gift units to you. So there's always something to do. You're never going to be just twiddling your thumbs as your friends trying to fight a battle.
Yeah, so my guess is it's essentially going to play out just like normal head-to-head played out currently, just with more players, basically.
Yeah, if you're in a team, obviously you wouldn't be able to fight as the AI against your teammate, but
yeah,
your teammate can give you units. So yeah, you've always got units to control if you want to.
Yeah, I imagine it would be very exploitative. You know, it's just like, oh, I'll just take control of this army and then immediately make them retreat so you win. If you were able to take control of the AI when you're not playing a head-to-head. Great. Okay, we didn't quite do what I was hoping, but that's okay. It didn't go as bad as it could have. The only thing that potentially could be a problem is I just realized that for some reason this tower is on this node, not this one. So if they take that point, I lose the tower inside. And the same with this tower, although I'm not sure which one it's connected to. Oh, it's connected to that node. Okay, that's a problem.
Yeah, try not to lose that catch point then.
Well, I'm trying. Now, why didn't you give all settlements Terracotta Sentinels at tier 1? This would have changed things dramatically for me. Oh, luckily... Wait, has he not... Oh, right, okay. So it's just his flyers that have come through. His forces are still trying to get through the gates. They haven't quite managed.
The Celestial Faithful.
Luckily, I can pull back my forces now. Yeah, this is legendary. Do you fix enemies? Oh, right. So this, I know that you said you haven't really messed with the battles and stuff since like game 1. But do you? I guess you've experienced the retreat paths that the AI take after they have broken.
Is he not? I think he's talking about the campaign game. I'm not sure.
I love it. Someone's asking. Oh, hold on. Is battle? I don't know which one just applies to the battle effects. Obviously not going to be mute or interface. Text or speech.
I'm just gonna get a drink. I'll be back in a second.
Okay. But yeah, so to answer your question, I'd play on Legendary. If you have any problems with the sound, I can try and address it, but the one thing that you've got to keep in mind is the closer I am to the action, the louder the sound gets. So if I'm zoomed really far out, it will be much quieter than when I'm actually zoomed in. Lower the music? Oh, it's the music you want lower. Okay. I can lower the music. Right, that Lord's currently tied up, so I don't have to worry about him. That blue screamers are still flying around being really annoying. I might... Where are the other towers here? There's a tower there. Where else? There's a tower in the back. I might have to pull back to that point. Luckily, this is actually working as I intended to. It's funneling the enemy into that one choke point. I've never experimented with that, so I didn't know if that was going to work. This is a bit of a mess. I might use my summon here. I think I will.
Stone and steel.
Lower music is the sin? Love the new building system. So awesome. I think it adds a lot. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it develops. You know, because it's quite a new system. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it develops as it goes. Hey, Ketrel. How's it going? Are there permanent tiered walls? It's temporary tiered walls. So I haven't seen any like inner walls within the settlement. They've only got like one wall, and then you have stuff like this. And depending on the settlement, some settlements have like multiple tiers, whereas others have like less. But that depends on the settlement itself. But I haven't seen anything where it's got like 2 sets of like actual walls within them. Normally you rely on the barricades that you can build within the wall. Okay, that's slowly funneling themselves in. I think I can hold this.
Thoughts in harmony.
If I can just get through these screechers, kill off this lord, pull my forces back, I think we should be in a good position. Will you change the look/design on settlement supply defenses so they don't look the same in regard to the towers, blockades? Unfortunately, we can't ask that question because that would be stuff that's not currently in the game yet, and I've been told that we can't discuss discuss anything that's not in the game for multiple reasons. So we can only really discuss what's there.
Someone's asking in the chat, can you explain what the thin bars above the HP bar are? I think he's talking about the Zinch barrier.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is a new feature that Zinch units have. Not all of them, but some of their demonic units. The blue line is kind of like a secondary health bar, and you have to smash through that barrier before you can actually start to deal damage, and it will recharge over time.
What came about for that system, by the way? Because I don't believe it's a tabletop system.
That is a good question, and probably one that's better suited for the battle designers.
Oh, okay.
The tabletop, but maybe I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I haven't played Zinch on the tabletop, but I didn't know. Like, it took me by surprise, and a lot of people have been like, "What is this?" And I found it really enjoyable as a mechanic for a playstyle, because normally, if you don't have access to like healing or anything, your units are just going to take damage, right? So it doesn't really matter when you send them in, because they're going to take that damage regardless. Whereas with the barricade, that was something that I could potentially regenerate while the battle progressed, and so it changed my playstyle where instead of having like all of like 2 units side by side holding, what I would try to do instead would be having one in the front, and then as soon as his barrier breaks, send the one behind him forward, and then pull the other one back, and then allow him to regenerate his barrier, and keep on switching them like that. Which was very effective in reducing the losses that I suffered as Zinch, which was cool.
Yeah, it really lends itself to that kind of guerrilla warfare where you're going in and out and exchanging units between each other. It's really cool.
Heroic. Will the game have support for DLSS technology? I have no idea.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not really the person to be asking that question, but I'm sure our graphics programmers can get more info on that.
Okay. Does the Warrior of Chaos faction show up in Warhammer 3? I have not seen them, so I do not believe so.
They do, in fact.
They do?
Yeah. They
When?
are... They're... Okay, well, we're not... When we say Warriors of Chaos faction, I'm talking about the Warriors race in general. Not the faction that you saw in Warhammer 1. But there are Warriors of Chaos on the map, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I stand corrected. When will the Monkey King appear? We can't talk about the Monkey King, unfortunately. Although he does appear in flavor text between load screens. Well, I think I'll just auto-resolve that fight. Is this? Oh, okay, that's interesting. So in this one, I think this settlement must have been under siege, and my caravan just happened to be in proximity, and so they used my caravan to help them beat this Nurgle army sieging them.
Because they're rebels, everyone is at war with them. So
Yeah.
war with them. You could have declined to fight, but
That'd be
it's kind
rude. You can't just leave
Yeah.
demons just hanging around. We'll take the shortcut. Let's do that. Been wondering, how does the skull cannon fare in general? Find it useful? So obviously I play on legendary. So you try to be as efficient as possible with your units. The skull cannon, when you got it, it was really helpful. A lot of the time when I used it though, so Scarbrand has the ability that when he raises a settlement, he can either get a bunch of skulls, or he can raise a new army. And that army, it has a reduced upkeep cost, and it doesn't add to your supply lines, and it can be very powerful. And normally you end up with skull cannons in there. And they're really good. They're very good for sniping large targets, and once they run out of ammo, they have to go into melee combat to replenish the ammo that they have. So they're quite versatile in that sense. But normally, when I'm playing on Legendary, I try to be a little bit more sturdy with my main army, just because I need to be able to be as efficient as possible and not lose it when I'm playing Legendary. So normally I just rely on like that unit being part of one of the summoned armies. How much customization is there on the caravans? Ooh, this is right. Okay, so you don't really get to build the caravan's army. What happens is you have like dilemmas, and those dilemmas can be like, oh, you can get some Jade Warriors with shields, or you can go for Jade Warrior crossbows, and you decide between those. But your Caravan Master has some unique skill points. So one of them is like he can carry more cargo capacity, which means obviously he makes more money when he succeeds on getting the goods to wherever you need them to go. He can increase the sale value of cargo. There's stuff that reduces attrition and also allows them to replenish inside foreign territory, which is super helpful. Because if you constantly are using the same caravan, it will slowly keep on taking damage, and not being able to replenish while in neutral territory is a big problem. But this one can help with that. Your caravans can be ambushed, so getting Wayfinder to reduce that chance is also huge. And there's a chance that you'll get shortcuts, so reducing the cost of those is really cool. The army tree is basically the standard army tree. And so is his his personal combat tree. The tactician one is also, I believe, unique to the Caravan Master. And then you have another one which you have to basically pick between, which is the Wheelwright and the Smuggler's Spice. One makes it so the cost of caravan shortcuts is reduced, and also a chance to double move by 10%. And then the Smuggler Spice makes it so the maximum cargo capacity is increased by 30% and reduces the charge and extortion events. And then obviously like he has a mount, and then the Will of the Dragon and spell and missile reduction. So in that sense, he's really interesting as a result there. Is it the 17th yet? Not quite. But yeah, I really like the Caravan Master. And there was something I was gonna ask you. Now I have blanked.
When you think of that, while you think of that, I'm going to answer, are the talent trees bigger in Warhammer 3 than Warhammer 2? By that, they mean the skill tree, and roughly the same size. Some are slightly bigger, some are slightly smaller. Depends on the character, really. You know, how many spells, how many abilities they have, things like that. But we have increased the maximum rank, so as you can see, Miao Yang here is rank 50, which is increased from 40, so you will get more skill points overall to spend. So there's going to be more things you can pick in the skill tree.
To fight for me is an honor.
Yeah, I'll rip that. Yeah, I for a life of me, I'm puzzling over it. I remember thinking about it a few times, and now I'm just like, Can't think. For the Demon Prince faction, why was the design choice to give them mortal units on the campaign instead of making them Demons of Chaos like how they function in multiplayer? Was it just rule of fun? Seems like they could eventually just become a superior version of Warriors of Chaos.
Well, the idea was the Demon Prince can recruit all the units that the 4 monogod, if you like, races can recruit. So Slanesh, for example, has Marauders. It's a case of we're getting those 4 rosters right and different and playing well together, and then having the Demon Prince have all of them. But obviously getting all of them is easier said than done. You need to be dedicating your settlements and your battle victories to the gods to pick and choose which units you want. So yeah, it's a case of them getting everything basically.
Pre-download I believe is 2 days before release. Also, I actually have 3 armies, not 1. And they're pretty hefty armies too. The Caravan does not cost anything. Doesn't add to supply lines, and I don't believe it has an upkeep cost, although I'll double check that. But yeah, I have a substantial amount of money invested into armies right now to protect the bastions. The bastion luckily also has a building that can reduce the upkeep cost of those armies. So while it doesn't make them free, it does make it easier to sustain them. I'll show them off in a bit, but yeah, they're quite chunky armies. How many gigabytes is the game? 120 on my computer.
Yes, you can have rank 50 characters for lords and heroes as well as your legendary lords. It's for everyone. And why Sartorial is not the leader of Sartorial's Watchers in Cathay? Well, there is actually an answer to that, and you will have to play the whole game to find out.
Whoa. That's mean. It's like, actually, there's an answer, but you won't know.
You will play the game.
Oh man, I haven't got any. I haven't got a lot of money. Right. I'm gonna try and rush this army.
Defenders of Cathay.
See how well I can do this.
Peasant spearmen.
You can only have 1 outpost in a settlement, so yeah, only 1 per settlement. But you can obviously have multiple outposts across your settlements. So if you have 3 settlements, then you can have an Empire Dwarf one and a Cathay one. And yeah, 1 per ally. So if you're allied with 3 different factions, you can have 3 different outposts, but only 3.
One per player? No, so basically, there's 1 outpost slot for everybody in 1 per capital, so basically per province. So
yeah,
if you don't get it quick, then you lose out to somebody else. And then one of the ways that I got around this is I was like, oh, well, I really want to get a capital settlement with these with this faction. So there was somebody around that faction that I didn't like, so I basically beat up the faction next to them, gifted them the capital building from that faction I beat up, and then I put an outpost in the capital building that I gifted to them. So yeah, you can make it happen if you really need to. Where there's a will, there's a way.
there are other ways as well. Like if you're playing as Zinch, you can actually break the alliance. You can do it that way.
Yeah.
Conniving about it.
Ah, good old Zinch. Okay, it looks like we have got the ogres to pump in quite nicely here. So I should be able to get a very nice flank on these ogres and completely crush them between the two forces. And then hopefully I'll have enough to try and stop these guys who are currently invading me. Can the AI remove the outpost like it breaks treaties?
So if you break a treaty, then yeah, the outpost will go away. You can. I don't think you can remove. So if someone builds a outpost in your settlement, I don't think you can remove it. But if you build it, you can demolish it or move it somewhere else. There isn't really it wouldn't be a good idea to remove someone else's outpost because it's kind of a net benefit for both factions. So it's a good thing to have, basically.
Yeah, I guess the only way to remove an outpost in your territory would be to break the alliance with the faction that built it, which would then remove the outpost.
You could abandon the settlement, I suppose, but yeah, again, it's not really useful.
Yeah, it's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. Oh wow, those ogres are coming in quite quick. This is one of the things a lot of people asked about ogres. They were like, are they prone to like range attacks? And they are, but their speed makes up for that, I think, because they're able to close the gap between the ranged threats quite quickly.
Yeah, they're quite big targets, so it's easy to hit them with projectiles. Although they're pretty heavily armoured, so it might just bounce off.
Crossbowman, defend the realm!
Are those spell summoned warriors any different than the regular variant? They are. They're an ethereal unit, so they have like 70 physical resistance. But they're not a ghost. In the sense that they can still be feared and terrified. And break.
Repositioning! Guided by ancestors! Warrior crossbows!
And I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe you can recruit the ancestral warrior unit that you can summon, correct?
Yeah, they're exclusive to the ability.
Wait! Oh man, they took all of the points, and I didn't notice. I was too busy looking at chat. I didn't see them taking it.
I was watching the units, and I thought they were routed there for a second, but yeah, they snuck in and captured it.
I could have won that. No. Damn it. Well, Greasus has just taken his first bite out of my empire. Province then. You know what? I'll show you. I will show you an outpost.
Yeah, they're definitely more than garrisons. They do provide units to the garrison, but they do a lot more than that, which we'll show you in a second.
I guess I could send Miao Ying south to try and deal with Greasus, but I also know that there's a roar coming soon, I believe. Actually, no, there's not, because the thing's still on. Yeah, but I might be able to teleport. Oh, I closed it. Oh, isn't interesting. Frozen pendant, wind blast. Do you have a team who decide on items? Like, is there a team that's just like dedicated to coming up with like what items there are in the game and the buffs that they provide and stuff like that?
It's kind of a mixture of designers. Obviously, they come from the army books. So, well, you're playing as Cathay, so you're probably not going to see the items in an army book because it's something that Games Workshop created for. But they did basically come up with an army book, which is sealed under lock and key. So they are sort of it comes from the IP. But yeah, we take that list and then convert it into something that makes sense in our game, and it's something that all the designers kind of chip into. Usually it's kind of given to one person to do, but once they're in the game, we're all playing it and making tweaks and suggestions here and there.
Okay. Right, so this is the garrison. So the first one, basically, it provides casualty replenishment rate for local armies, and then allied recruitment is expensive outside the friendly territory, and it allows you to recruit, I believe, provides allied recruitment of a selection of units from the faction's local recruitment. So you can only get from what's in either the capital city, I believe, or I guess it would be the capital city, not the province.
Whole province. So if Nong Chang, for example, had a recruitment building, you could get the units that they can recruit from that building.
Oh, okay.
Some of the units, anyway.
And then the level 2 one has a slight increase in replenishment by 50%, 1% actually, but and then provides allied recruitment of a selection of units from the faction's global recruitment. So I'm guessing that means you can recruit units from their entire.
Yeah.
And then the problem with that one, and then I guess the level 3 one takes away the discount. The penalty of globally recruiting, which you normally have with like the first 2, which is like really expensive outside of friendly territory. And then the casualty replenishment is slightly increased, and also I believe the garrison units are changed. So there's 2 Jade Warriors, Jade Warrior crossbowmen, and then that changes it to a Jade Warrior crossbowman with a shield and Jade Warrior with halberds.
Yeah, so as I was saying before, that's the kind of the garrison is the benefit that the faction that owns the settlement gets. So if the AI builds a outpost in your territory, it's good to have it because that gives you some of their units that you can play with in the garrison. So it's a sort of free defense, if you like.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm just gonna take this. Also, to anybody who's wondering about the economy, so the total amount of money that I'm currently making right now is 8,164. My army upkeep right now is 9,657. The armies that I have are this army. So the Jade Warriors that I've got here are like the middling unit, and then the Celestial Dragon Guard are like the top tier infantry unit, and obviously the Terracotta Sentinels are like, a tier 5 monstrous unit. And then there's this army which is more, it's not as high tier as the other army, but it's got like the 2 Terracotta Sentinels as well. And those 2 are defending the 2 gates that I control. So it's not like, so it's not like I've just got Miao Ying's army and I can't afford anything else. I've actually got two quite powerful armies currently defending the Bastion Wall. And this is off, I believe, 2 provinces, and then the other 2 Bastion provinces. That's all I really have. Obviously, the Bastions only provide me with like 630 gold. My main money really comes from the Broken Land, which is what I got from actually confederating one of the Cathay factions down south, and then quite a bit of my money comes from trade. So yeah. Will there be a co-op on local computer possible? That you could play 2 different factions?
Not on launch, no. That's not something that we've put in. But yeah, as I say, update players on multiplayer.
Take care, Starlight. Thank you for being here. Do outposts spread corruption? Imagine VC build an outpost. Do they spread corruption?
It's something we looked at, but we found that it was more annoying than useful because, if you're playing as Empire or Cathay or a faction that doesn't spread corruption, and you get an alliance with Vampire Counts or Skaven, it's hard to do, and if they start spreading corruption, it's not ideal, so they don't.
Do nomads respawn when they die? Oh, are you referring to the attackers on the Bastion?
What information
They continuously attack the Bastion, just again and again and again. And what happens is, if you don't sally forth and actually fight the Kurgan invasion forces and bring down their threat to the Bastion, you'll actually notice that the Bastion threat meter will increase and increase and increase. I think roughly it's around 6% each turn. And then fighting and winning against one of the armies reduces it by 20%. Well, you've seen it's going to actually happen now. If you allow it to get to 100%, it spawns a whole bunch of these guys, which comes with a whole bunch of like chaos, Marauder champions, feral mammoths, and Norscan ice trolls, and berserkers. And then they, there's normally a bunch of them come and they attack the Bastion at the same time. And this is quite a big threat. So dealing with, like, potentially here, we're going to have to deal with, like, 4 armies attacking the Snake Gate at the same time. Which is why I reinforced the Bastion as I did with these armies. Because the Bastion itself has really good garrisons. They're not. It's not a terrible garrison by any means. But even with that, you can't take on 4 armies with just the garrison. So I tried to back them up with these armies. Caravans replaced the old trading via diplomacy. No. Caravans is a Cathay unique thing. So I still trade here. But I've just got a Caravan as another option too. Oof, I don't really want to give you 3,000 gold, lady. Fine, we'll just take the military success. Man, she's trying to fleece me.
She's miles away. She's not gonna. Well, I mean, if she jumps in a rift, it could actually be useful.
Yeah, I guess. Right. So my plan now, I might be able to do this. I'm hoping I can jump into this rift here and actually jump down into my province down south. If I can do that, I can close that rift down, which will then start draining away that Zinch corruption. So hopefully we'll get rid of the Zinch corruption there. But also, I can start bringing the fight to Greasus and start taking his territory from him.
Yeah, I think he's focusing down south, so you're probably good to attack there.
I'm hoping so. Oh, here's a question. So when we looked at like the garrisons here, the first thing when I saw this immediately was the fact that the capital city one looks slightly different. Like it's wider. And I was hoping that there was going to be more than 20 units in the garrison, but this doesn't seem to be the case. Is there a reason why that's a limitation outside of the armies themselves can only hold 20 regiments?
Yeah, that does tie to the limit of 20 units across the board, and that's kind of both a technical and a gameplay consideration. We found 20 is kind of the sweet spot for number of units. There's that's quite a lot to manage in a battle, especially for some newer players. You can obviously get up to 40 units if you're using reinforcements, but yeah, we found that's kind of the sweet spot. And obviously, if we had 40 units in every army, it's gonna increase the required specs for the game. So it's kind of a balancing act between those two things.
Okay. So I guess the follow-on question is, there are instances where you obviously have more than 20 units available for the garrison. So some of the units are basically pushed off from that. Is there like some like under the hood ranking system that determines which units get pushed out?
Yeah, exactly. They all have a priority assigned to them, and the higher priority, the higher chance of them being in it. So, and that kind of ties to their um, the tier of unit. So, the better the unit is, the more chance it's going to be in the garrison.
Okay, cool. I was going to go into my territory, and then I thought this rift's going to close in a few turns. So I'm just going to go deep into his territory, because why not? Now I'm regretting that decision, because I just realized that this settlement here does not actually have a garrison building. Oh, and you're damaged.
Also open for one more turn, so
True.
we're gonna close anyway. So you don't need to go out of your way to close that one on the right.
By the way, so you know the garrison? Once the caravan actually meets its destination, it then has to go back home in order for you to then send it out again. How long does that take? I've never actually seen any like cooldown anywhere.
I think it's just a few turns. I don't think they need to go back through each individual node in the route. But yeah, it makes sense to have a cooldown. Yeah, I'll make a explain that because that would be useful.
Yeah, because I was just kind of like, because I knew about it, and then what I was often finding is in the later parts of the game, sometimes we've seen it here, is you can end up with like quite a lot of hostile nodes, especially if the ogres decide that they really fancy some dragon meat. And when you do that, when you try to send out like an early, like a younger caravan, one, you know, that you haven't really put too much time and invested into, it can get stumped a lot of the time by some of the stronger forces that it will have to try and contend with. And so you either end up giving away a whole bunch of your supplies, or you just try to fight it and just get destroyed. I was so what I ended up doing was just basically trying to like either clear out that territory and then trying to send it, or I was just like, okay, I'm just going to stick with my one caravan that I know is quite strong and just rely on that. So that's when I was starting to look for like a otherwise the game just tells you, oh, you can send a caravan out every turn until eventually you can actually send out your main one.
Yeah. There's a question in the chat. Did we touch trade? So land trade routes work better? Yes. So there's no longer a need to create like a physical route between capitals. So if you're the other side of a mountain range that's impassable, you can still trade with the faction that's the other side. We thought that was a much needed improvement. Level 50, yes, you can now go up to level 50 with your characters, not just level 40.
What was the reasoning behind the change? Because I believe in game 1 it was level 30, right? And then game 2 bumped that up to level 40.
Yeah, it was 10 each time. I guess you know, bigger is better in this case. The skill trees are pretty big in a lot of cases. We've had a lot of feedback from players saying, you know, you can't pick all the skills in the tree, which is by design in part, but we want to be flexible with that and not be too restrictive. So, yeah, it was a kind of no-brainer decision. I think also there's a lot of players who play, they'll win the campaign and continue playing, so it's a good way of adding some extra content after the game's completed.
Cool. Any faction that was harder to implement, and if yes, which was the hardest?
That is a good question. They've all had difficulties. They've all had complex features. I would probably say the Demon Prince, because it's something that we've not, unlike anything we've done before, having a completely customizable character the amount of art that has gone into just the character himself and all the different body parts is almost the equivalent of a whole race's units. So if you think about all the different units that Cathay has, you know, that amount of physical content is in the Demon Prince himself. So that was a huge task, and getting that right and getting the gameplay right and the sort of pacing of unlocks was tricky. There's so many different things to unlock as him. It's not just a sort of customizable character. You're almost customizing your faction. You know, you're picking your units. You pick kind of which buildings to get in the settlements when you dedicate them. So it's there's a lot more content in that faction compared to the other ones. So that was tricky, but I think we really nailed that.
Did you have I guess what was the thing that you enjoyed working on the most? Like, was there something that was like, you know, that was your thing, you wanted to see it happen, and then you were able to bring that to life into the game?
Yeah, there's so many of those. I think Cathay and Kislev are massive ones because, as we've said, it's all new content. It's stuff that Games Workshop have created for us. Obviously, it's something they've been thinking about for ages. There's been little bits and pieces in the lore. They've had units here and there, but never a full army book, and that's something they created. And yeah, as fans of the tabletop, you know, I've been playing Warhammer. I mean, I don't even remember a time before in my life where I didn't have Warhammer in my life. So, you know, as a kid, I had high off models. My brother had Dark Elves, and we'd fight together. So it's like it's a big part of a lot of our lives. So being able to create content that hasn't been seen before was just so cool. I think that's really shown in the stuff that you see with Cathay and Kislev.
I don't know if you know what just happened, but well, it's been a while now. Like, it was about like 2 minutes ago. A whole bunch, like not a whole bunch, a stone tusk, I think. Just kind of like, I think it was a spell, but it looked like a stone tusk just kind of like appeared and then ran through my army as if like it was a wind spell. But
Yes.
they don't have any spellcasters, so I don't know how that. I don't know who did that.
That's an army ability that they get from the camp.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's building the camps. If you're within the radius of the camp, you'll get some really cool army abilities.
Right, cool. I was just like, wait, there's no way that Lord cast that from there. And I was like, wait, that Lord's not even a spellcaster. How did this happen? I was so confused. That's actually the first time I've seen that ability used. That's cool. Firebelly? No. I don't believe this guy is. Oh no, right. Oh, yeah. I think that's something that's going to change, I believe.
I have the Law of Fire, which doesn't have. I don't think that has any summons.
No. So it was something that was fed back. It looks like they don't get their basic spells, but I think that might be unintended.
Yeah, the heroes in the garrison should get, I think, 1 or 2 basic spells.
Yeah, because I know, I think the way that they obtain their spells is through a script of some kind, because what happens is if you have like a new hero that doesn't have any basic spells in like game 2, and then they're in a garrison fight, they'll get a spell. So for instance, if you've got like a warlock engineer, Skaven, who doesn't have warp lightning, in a garrison fight, he'll get warp lightning because the game gives it to him for that battle. So
Yeah.
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 Xinjiang's faithful. Master of Tempest. Behold the Tempest.
Let's give her a little heal. Oh, I completely forgot about my sentinels. I probably should send those in. Unfortunately, we can't talk about any potential future content today. Those kind of discussions, I'm sure, will happen sometime in the future.
With joy.
What graphic settings are we looking at? Well, mine are custom, but the game itself is not fully. This is like an early access build,
It's fate.
so
The Star
it's not fully optimized yet. But I can show you my graphic settings later on.
Jade crossbow.
But a lot of it is on ultra.
Dragon God.
But there's certain things turned off because I personally, I want the game to try and run as smooth as possible, and I don't really care about shadows, so I remove shadows, for instance.
Did we make any changes to vassals? Are they more useful? Yes, in the sense that all the war coordination features that you get with an alliance, you get them with vassals as well. So you can build outposts, you can recruit their units, and do all the war coordination things. And also, on the co-op campaign, 3+ players, if one of them leaves, does that stop the campaign? No, it doesn't stop it, so you can continue playing if you want. Basically what happens is that player is kind of frozen in place, so it's as if their turn is skipped until they come back. So you can either continue playing or drop out and start again with them, like load the save up and carry on.
But lighting and shadows look very good. I mean, sure, but I'm playing as the commander trying to win the battle. I don't have time for like fancy shadows and stuff. I gotta win. Well, regarding Mr. Fate Weaver,
You gonna get eaten.
luckily,
The Storm Dragon.
you, CA, have implemented the new unit and spell browser function. So we can actually go to Lynch. Why am I lost? There it is. And you can actually see the current units. So yeah, that sounds like that was something that happened as a result of the garrison. But yeah, there's Blue Horrors and then the Forsaken of Cinch currently as the implements for that faction. Please, Mr. Fate Weaver was my father. Call me Kairos. Wait, so it means you can recruit higher tier units from vassals compared to allies?
No, that they have the same rules, so the units you get are the same between them.
Emperor's chosen daughter.
Oh, that's something I actually I haven't really messed around with it too much. So in game 2, for instance, I know a lot of people saw it with, for instance, Nakai, where Nakai wasn't able to get his own settlements, but he would have like a separate faction that was under his control that he would give settlements to that he claimed. And what happened there was the AI would attack that vassal because it considered it to be extremely weak, because it didn't take into consideration that they would have to go to war with Nakai in order to attack the vassal. Is that something that you've addressed now in Game 3 with how vassals work and the AI's decision making on whether they should attack a vassal or not?
So again, yeah, the vassals have the same enemies still. So if someone declares war on you or your vassal, then yeah, the other one is pulled into that. Otherwise, the vassal relationship's broken. But yeah, I mentioned the faction potential system before. I think that's something that is new to Warhammer 3. It was something that was created for Three Kingdoms, so we've taken that across, and I believe that does factor into it. So it's kind of like a measure of a faction's strength, and there's all these different factors, and the whole kind of vassal master relationship is part of that.
Oh, that's cool. Cool. Because I was a massive fan of. Oh, Yeah, here we go. Only 2 of them this time. Yeah, I was a really big fan of the diplomacy that was in Three Kingdoms. I wanted to ask that as well. So I really liked in Three Kingdoms where it was more of a I guess like a democracy when it came to like the alliances. Where if you were to go to war, like an alliance war with a faction, you'd actually have to vote and get a majority to actually declare an alliance war against anyone in particular or other alliances. Is there a reason why that didn't make it into game 3? Because I personally was like, I thought it would work really well with like the Empire, for instance, where you'd the Empire mechanic or the military alliance mechanic would work well with you having to vote or go it alone if the rest don't want to come and help you out to fight against certain factions.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It wasn't, unfortunately, the way Three Kingdoms and Warhammer work under the hood. They're quite technically different, so it wasn't a situation where we could sort of copy and paste the diplomacy across. We had to pick and choose what we wanted, and we felt that things like the region trading and the make it work, things like that were the most important things, like the must-haves. So we had to sort of re-implement them and then build on top of that. So it was really a case of what can we feasibly do within the time frame, and what is most suited to the game. So things like the outpost mechanic was really key. Things that kind of fit the Warhammer narrative was really what we focused on. So yeah, unfortunately we couldn't get every single piece of diplomacy gameplay from 3K in, but I think what we have is really a powerful offering.
Yeah, I mean, I've played it for just like a little bit, and honestly, I think the biggest quality of life change was the one where you've got that button, and it's like if you do have the money to make something happen, you just click that button, and it's like there you go. That's the exact amount of gold that you need for this diplomacy piece to work. I thought that was really good because not only does it work from like where you have to give them money, but also if you want to gain money from them because you're doing something really positive. And so it made, for instance, I had one point where what I did, I didn't want to expand, but I needed money. So I was sacking settlements to get the money from sacking. And then after that, I was selling the settlements back to, I think, ogres. And being able to just quickly be like, yo, how much will you offer me for this? And immediately see how much they would give me. It was like such a time saver, and actually made it like really enjoyable to actually go out and take settlements and then sell them back to like the ogres, rather than having to go through the hassle of, will you take this? No, okay, right. Go back, give another amount.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the motto of the game, or one of the many that we've had, is quality of life improvements and making things faster and easier for the player. As you say, it's something that you'd go in and do and be constantly increasing the money until it worked, basically. So just cutting out that busy work was super important. And the same is true for things like speccing out your lord skills and auto constructing buildings, things like that. Just lots of little things that we've added to really sort of speed up the game.
Yeah, because I know from game 2, when it came to like diplomacy, it was normally quite, not always, but there were certain scenarios where it seemed like quite hard just to like, for instance, get like a trade agreement. And I've noticed in this one, the factions seem far more willing to go with like trade agreements. So on top of just like adding the new features to diplomacy, has there been any like major changes to the AI's, I guess, response to offered diplomacy?
I don't think there's been major changes as such, but I think the key was to explain to the player why they're making that decision, because on paper a trade agreement is a beneficial thing. It's kind of free money, but actually it does have lots of little knock-ons. If you make a trade agreement with with someone, that someone's enemy might dislike you because you're conducting diplomacy with them, for example.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things to consider, basically, that is going on kind of under the hood, and we've tried to make steps to make that more visible to the player. Like we talked about earlier, there's the threat indicate, things like that. So hopefully those things are more kind of visible to the player now, and you can understand what the AI is thinking.
Yeah, the only, I guess, actually, I guess that kind of explains it a little bit more, where I noticed I would offer territories to factions who didn't like me, and they would actually see it as a negative. I'm guessing that's because they wouldn't want to annoy my enemies necessarily by accepting something that makes them friendlier with me.
It's definitely possible, yeah. And you know, when you confederate with someone, for example, it's not always a net benefit. You know, you can get territory that might be kind of difficult to defend, or you know, could end up being next to an enemy, and then you're kind of in a tough spot, having to suddenly defend something that you didn't necessarily want, or yeah, things like that, where it's not really what you were expecting. So yeah, there's things that are going on which you might not be able to see kind of at a glance.
Yeah, hyped. Glad. When will the large map with all the factions come? Unfortunately, we can't talk about future content coming into the game today. But bear with me a second, because there's a mammoth that has broken through. These ogres can eat once they come and deal with this mammoth.
Guided by ancestors.
Never conquered. Celestial fury.
By the way, I've got to say, the the animations on some of the large units have been absolutely phenomenal. I think my favorite was the Rogue Idol, and now I think I might even be crushing on the Terracotta Sentinel a little bit more than the Rogue Idol now.
Yeah, they're amazing. I think my favorite's the Great Unclean one, and all the different attack animation.
Unfortunately, we cannot show the Great Unclean one because that guy is disgusting. I know the production of Nurglings has come into question with some of the Great Unclean one's animations.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Such good work with that. Someone in chat asks, are factions from previous games like Empire and Dwarfs, do they have their full rosters to the AI? Yes, they do. All the rosters of units, the buildings, the features, all the stuff that was added in Warhammer 2 DLC as well. And you can take advantage of that, so there's certain units that you can recruit, as we talked about before, using the Outposts. So, yeah. Will CA add an option to remove the animations? Probably not. I think they're pretty amazing, and yeah, Warhammer is pretty disgusting and can be juvenile at times, so I think I'm going to take that as a pretty big compliment.
Yeah, I think if anyone's really done any kind of like deep dive into demons, they are very juvenile. I remember one of my favourite stories regarding interaction between snotlings and nurglings is there's a big fight going on between an army of Nurgle and the Greenskins. And while this massive fight's going on, in one of the other buildings, the snotlings and nurglings are basically instead of having a snowball fight, they're having a filth fight where that's like throwing filth at each other. And then when the battle ends, they all kind of like look at each other, like kind of like sad and wave goodbye after having like a great time and leave and separate after the battle. Oh man, they're really breaking through there.
Jade Lancers, move in formation.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and bury them the way that I want to go.
Sent by dragons!
Sent by dragons.
Move in formation!
I just remembered.
Crossbowmen.
I have a phenomenal amount of crossbow units in the back of my base.
Wind and fire!
Wow,
Raise the dragon!
that could be why they are getting over my wall there.
The celestial faithful!
That's a
In
thing.
Yeah,
harmony!
Gotta keep an eye out for the Z icons on the unit cards. Shows which units are not doing anything. Quite
Well,
useful.
well, when I started the fight, everybody had the sleeping icon, and I'm playing on legendary, so I don't have a map, a mini map.
Infinite pride.
It's not my fault.
Jade crossbows!
Defenders of
But
Cathay.
listen, Chad. This was
Jade crossbows!
this was clearly well intentioned on my part, so that I've got a fallback army back at the defense point. That's all
Order and balance! Run! Run!
completely calculated.
Restore order. Thoughts in harmony.
Attack in unison! Without hesitation! Minds at one!
Right, gotta
Jade warriors!
try and chop through these trolls. Yeah, it seems like they've concentrated a lot of their monsters on this point. Luckily, the Heracala Sentinels are unbreakable and pretty tanky themselves.
Crossbowman! Warriors!
Yeah, I think they're your best shot at taking down the mammoths.
Bring in harmony! I stand I must march!
I could pull a few more units off the wall, but I think honestly, I don't think I'm gonna get much benefit out of meta units right now. I need monstrous units and I need ring. Let's see.
Jade crossbow!
Sent by dragon.
Crossbowman!
Alright, if we pull this crossbow
Guided by
unit,
ancestors!
let's pull this one to the side slightly. Okay, the trolls here are. Yeah, I'm starting to break those. That mammoth's broken. If we can concentrate on the other mammoth and take it down, I think
Warrior
we'll be able to get this under control. Oh. Yeah, they've broken through on that flank. And that unit's broken as well. Yikes.
Shenyang's faithful!
Well, the good news is the mammoths are gone. If I get these Terracotta Sentinels to retreat back and deal with those trolls, that should help a lot.
Warriors. Immediately.
Dragon guard!
Warriors.
Celestial sorcerer!
Defenders.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that the reason why there are mortal units in some of the demon faction armies is because obviously with the Demons of Chaos army book, it was like a single faction, standalone, whereas you've split it into 4 for this game.
Yeah, exactly. We thought that we could either go down one of two ways, which was having one big Demons of Chaos race or having the 4 monogods, but actually the best route was to have both. So we've got 5 different races. The Demons of Chaos, led by the Demon Prince, has access to all of those units. And yeah, some of the demons have multiple units in them in their rosters, and that meant that it made sense for the demons of Chaos race to have those too. It would, I mean, you could make a case for doing it either way, but I think cutting out those units just feels like a kind of unnecessary restriction, really. And also, even if we did that, you could still get those units through allied recruitment, as we talked about a lot before. So, just seems like a unnecessary restriction.
Actually, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's a fair point. You'd be able to recruit them anyway. Bullizan, could some of the abusable stuff regarding garrison fights could be addressed? You'd have to elaborate on what you're referring to. White Devil asks, when I switch often between Vortex and more Empires, I have to install both. What do you mean? Do you mean if you want to switch between the Game 2 map and the Game 3 map? Are you asking if you're going to be able to play any of the Game 2 maps in Game 3?
There's a lot of chat about the different games and if you need them installed, so I'll just try and explain the situation. They're 3 separate games, so if you want to play the Warhammer 1 map, you need to install Warhammer 1, and if you want to play the Vortex map, that's only in Warhammer 2. If you want to play the Chaos map, you only need to have Warhammer 3 installed. Obviously, it's its own game. It has content from 1 and 2, but that ships with Warhammer 3. And when we do release this combined map, that you're all very excited to see, I can see in the chat, you will only need Warhammer 3 installed. So the other 2 are just there for their respective maps. So if you never want to play them again, then yeah, you can uninstall them, but I wouldn't recommend that because both of those maps are really cool too.
Stone and steel.
Okay, this time, I'm not gonna forget. Or at least try not to forget. Let's pad out this wall a little bit more.
Dragon Guard. Minds at one.
Dragon guard.
Jade Warriors.
The celestial faithful.
The Celestial Faithful.
Let's see. So they're reinforcing on that side, which means they're probably gonna try and break through this gate.
Warriors.
This guy's there. And then just 2 to support this. I'll probably put like a third army to support that. Right. We've got 4 more of these guys left. Let's put 2 here.
Jade Warriors.
Actually, let's put those forward, because this time I'm going to remember
Stone and steel.
to use my other range units and not hold them back in reserve.
Thoughts in harmony. Crossbowmen. Warrior crossbow. Wind and fire.
Ah, and I've got 3 Terracotta Sentinels.
Someone is asking what the icon is with the 2 crossed swords. That is melee mode. So if you have a missile infantry unit, you can click that, yeah, and that will set them into melee mode, so they won't fire. They'll just fight with their weapons.
Fight with pride, for you are the guardians of order.
Okay, right. Oh, you know what I've done? I forgot to build my towers.
Oh dear.
Dude, too many things to juggle. Oh, and I did have a unit back in reserve that I forgot about as well. Oh well. I'm sure I won't lose this settlement, it's fine. Everything's okay. Hey, Thaddeus! Clean shaven for a change? How's it going, man? Long time no see. Yeah, so one of the best ways that I use toggle melee mode, for instance, would be normally for hybrid units. So if you imagine like chariots that have a range attack, so what you can do is if you press Alt and then give an attack command, it actually gives a melee attack command. So you can keep them untoggled from melee, and then just press Alt and then right click, and then they'll do a melee attack command. Or if you've got, say, I'm trying to think. I think it was the Chameleon skirmishes, for instance. Something that has like a default ranged attack, but sometimes you just want it like to, you know, actually charge in straight away. You'll just change it to toggle melee mode, stuff like that.
Someone asks, how could Creative Assembly make a Warhammer game without the dwarfs? Well, the dwarfs are in this game. He might have missed a word in there.
Yeah. Ungrim Iron Fist is in. You just can't play as him, but he is there. Oh damn, they've broken through with the 2 mammoths. Luckily I'll send my Terracotta Sentinels to try and intercept them. It's released on Warhammer 3, 17th February. By the way, so I don't know if you know anything regarding this, but it seems obviously we don't have like jewels in the game like we did in like Troy or in Three Kingdoms, but it does seem to be some a more of a pair up between large units engaging in combat sometimes. Do you know if there have been any like changes to that, where 2 large units will kind of like pair up and like fight each other?
Not changes as such, just more of it. Obviously, all the different sized units have different skeletons, and having combat animations between them needs to be done on a case-by-case basis. And yeah, we've seen that people really love them, and we love making them. So it's just a lot of hard work because there are so many different combinations and so many different sizes and shapes of units. So there isn't one for every matchup, but there's a lot more than there were in previous games and in this game.
Ah, okay. Yeah, because one of the things that was like I know a surprise to a lot of people were some of the kill animations in game 2. Like one of the ones that stood out for me was the Slan grabbing a Hydra, lifting it up with their mind, and then like twirling its heads together and then throwing it around. A lot of people didn't see those animations, but they're like really, really cool. I think there's like a YouTube video out there with all of them.
Yeah, there's 2 different types of these matched animations. You know, one for just fighting that will kind of trigger and then they'll carry on as normal, and then one for the actual kill animation. So yeah, it pays to zoom in every now and then and just kind of admire the action as it plays out.
Zoom in on the Marauders. You got Marauder champions there getting their butts kicked. What could be hard about motion capturing a man? Suplexing a mammoth? Come on!
We have a really high-tech motion capture studio, but yeah, when we tried to get the elephant in there, it just wasn't fitting. So, come on.
Uh-oh. At least you tried.
Crossbowman.
Yeah, we'll have to do it outside next time.
Why do skeletons and demons have vigor? It bothers me since that one. Oh, well, that's easy, right? Right. What you gotta understand is the zombies and the skeletons don't have vigor in the same sense as humans do. The zombies, for instance, are being controlled by a necromancer. It requires concentration and effort on that necromancer's part in order to animate said zombies. So the more active they are, the harder it is for him to control them, and so he weakens, therefore they become more sluggish. As for a demon requires magic to manifest itself. Therefore, as it does stuff and gets attacked, its ability to maintain its small shell lessens, and so it becomes more sluggish. Easy. But probably mechanically for game purposes, I imagine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Be very fair if one entire race was immune to the effects of vigor. It's quite a key component to battle, so yeah.
Just as perfect vigor. Yeah, but yeah.
What you say is true. And that is true in the lore.
I mean, it was. I know a lot of people when Game 1 came out. There was a big rumor that if you killed a vampire or the lord of an undead army, then the entire army would just like disintegrate and fall apart. Which, as far as I know, was like never the case because it'd be really easy just to snipe out the lord. However, there was. I don't know if it was like an Easter egg, or if it was intended or not. But I know with Imric, one of Imric's quest battles was if you actually killed off the vampire lord, then the entire army did just immediately die and you won the entire fight, which I thought was quite funny.
Lord Magistrate.
Yeah, some of the quest battles have unique bits of script and yeah, fun little ways of playing out.
Oh, right. This is quite a big change actually. So my lord there just gained 5 levels. So it seems like the way that experience is distributed is different now in this in Game 3, and also after the battle it tells you how much experience you get. So could you tell us a little bit about that change?
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of calculated now based on the strength of the army. So before you'd just get a fixed amount based on the victory. So if you got like a heroic victory, you'd get a bunch of experience, but that would always be the same regardless of who you're fighting. So there's a little bit more of a complex algorithm going on, working out how much experience to award. So you got a ton there because you defeated a massive army. I think it was 2 armies. So yeah, that's kind of a good way of fixing the kind of exploit that you'd get where you'd constantly allow a rebellion to happen and just keep farming that and getting experience. So now you can't do that as easily.
The Emperor's chosen daughter.
Right, we'll abandon this settlement because the main thing that I want to do is I don't want any of this territory. So the best thing that I can do to basically mess up Croesus is to take the territory, sack it, or occupy and loot it for as much money as possible, and then abandon it. So when he reclaims it, one, he has to take a big hit to his army in order to colonize it, but then 2, all of the infrastructure is gone, so he has to rebuild it again. So I get money, he has to spend money to rebuild, and it takes him time to get back up to
Cathay Eternal.
that's what I'm going to do to him. Caravan is still coming back. Oh, well that's a good one as well. So in game 2, there was a trait limit. So one lord could only have a certain amount of traits. Has that limit been increased or removed?
I believe that is still the case. Unfortunately, because of the amount of characters that are running around and the way the traits work, a lot of traits are kind of point based, so you'll actually get traits without or you'll get points in a trait before you actually get the trait, and tracking all of that for so many characters is really memory intensive, unfortunately. So yeah, we have to have a limit on that, but it's not. It is something that we're looking at, and we do understand that it's a common complaint. So yeah, we are looking at that over time.
Okay. How do you decide on what traits are given by a lord? Because one thing I hear a lot, and I guess like see as well, is sometimes there are traits that are like really, really strong, and then some traits that are kind of a little bit lacking, or if not lacking, they can be good for one lord, but like bad for another. So an example would be any lord, for instance, that can gain terror doesn't really care about killing like Cole Franz or say Cathay, because the only thing that you get for doing that is terror. But we already have that trait on the lord potentially. So how do you go about like deciding what traits a lord will get when you kill them?
Yeah, it's a bit of a complex one because traits are generally. I mean, the general approach is if you've got a trait that is very powerful, you want that to be hard to get, and conversely, if it's kind of like a small effect, like a small public order bonus or something, you want that to be quite easy to get. And then the ones that you get from defeating characters, they're quite specific. They can be hard to get, they can be easy to get. It depends on what that character's doing. And as you say, the effect that provides needs to be something kind of generic that would be appropriate for all of them, but it also needs to be kind of flavorful. They're not meant to be something that you really go out of your way for and play for and achieve that way. They're more meant to be something flavorful, like a cool kind of achievement on your character. So yeah, it's kind of a difficult one to pin down because
Yeah,
there's a lot of moving parts to it. The traits that you get for just like capturing settlements or raiding are a lot easier to design and balance. Yeah, the ones for defeating legendary lords are tricky. Yeah, I don't think we've got them 100% right yet, but it's still something that we're working on.
yeah, because I know from like personal experience, Isabella, everybody wants to get Isabella because regeneration, right? Such a good trait to get, especially for lords that had no other way to obtain healing in battle, due to either items not providing it or no access to like magic that would give any kind of healing. And then I think one trait that's even more elusive than Isabella, generally because Isabella tends to either not get recruited or seemingly like Von Carstein's die before you get the chance, would be Gotrix. Gotrix got one of the most powerful traits, I think, in the game, which gives Unbreakable. But obviously, the chance of him actually being recruited and then you finding him and killing him, it's like, oh my gosh, I actually found Gotrix, and then you immediately declare war on whoever's got him, and then try to defeat him. Because Unbreakable is like really, really powerful, especially like I think like with lords that can be I guess one-man armies where they have the potential to take on entire armies by themselves. Having that Unbreakable trait is like really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. But even then, some characters might have that by default, and then it's a case of, well, do we take out that trait because this one character won't benefit from defeating Gotrek?
True.
It's kind of a juggling act there.
Buff Mazda Mundi? Look, just put Mazda Mundi on the stag and he's fine. That's what you need to do, Copium. Obviously, you're more with the you don't deal too much with the battle maps. But obviously Magic has had some big changes like throughout just like the years, like since game 1. I think Magic has definitely come a long way since like its introduction in game 1 to where it is now, even in game 2. I think some of just from like a visual design point of view, I think some of my favorite magic was from like Lord of the Deeps, for instance. And it really, really looked good, but then also just kind of like how you've implemented it, like how it does damage and stuff has changed. Is there like a certain like place that you get, I guess, inspiration from for like what you're gonna do with like new laws, or is that something that's restricted by like working together with like Games Workshop on how they want it to appear?
I think it comes from, well, originally it would be from the tabletop. You know, how does this function? How does the army book describe it? And kind of going from there. Usually we'll take the descriptions and send that to our concept artists, and they'll kind of concept the spells and just draw up, you know, like thumbnail images of how it might look, and then we'll go through a process with Games Workshop, kind of iterating on that. But yeah, it kind of depends on the spell and the text and what Games Workshop make of it and how we kind of envision it ourselves. We obviously play the game, like the tabletop game, ourselves and see how the spell actually functions in a practical sense. But yeah, we're looking at other games for certain inspiration. You know, film and TV can help sometimes. I know for Cathay, a big sort of, I wouldn't say inspiration, but definitely something that kind of got the creative juices flowing was, oh god, I can't remember the name of the film now, but there was a fantasy film set around the Great Wall. I don't remember what it was called. It was terrible, but
what,
visually
the one with it was just called The Great Wall, right?
Yeah.
Where it had like the monsters, like dragon-esque kind of monsters come in, and that's why they built the Great Wall.
Yeah, exactly. That was something that, yeah, I wouldn't say inspirational, but definitely got creative juices flowing and gave us some ideas.
Are unit ranges bigger in Warhammer 3? Do you mean their range? Mao Ying, so these guys, their default range is 160, but Mao Ying has a few ways to increase it herself, personally, but also the Lord tree that buffs up those units can also increase the range by like 10%. So that's why they're currently at 192. And I think there's a technology that increases it slightly. What are the playable races on launch? I'm sure you can answer this.
Yeah, so Arkcard is currently playing as Cathay. The demons, as you mentioned, that's the Demon Prince, Khorne, Slanesh, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Kislev. And then, yeah, if you pre-order the game or buy it within the first week, you'll get the Ogre Kingdoms as well for free. So that's what, 8 races in total, 12 playable factions that you can play as. This is, yeah, without a doubt the biggest game I think we've ever released, definitely the biggest Warhammer game, so yeah, something for everyone there.
Never conquered.
Yeah, I think I'm close to wrapping this up. They've only got a few forces. Well, they've only got 69 troops left, apparently.
Crossbowman.
Caravan's fury.
What's with combined demons?
Say that. Yeah, so that's the Demon Prince. It is completely customizable character. You can name them, you can pick the body parts, pick the weapons, choose which god you want to dedicate to, or any combination of those, or go the undivided route. You can recruit any unit from any of those 4 rosters. Different building trees for each god that you dedicate settlements to. It's yeah, really, really cool. That's not to downplay any of the 4 Chaos gods that you can play as. They all have their own features. The Demon Prince has access to some of those features, but yeah, Khorne, for example, has his own set, which, yeah, is totally unique to him. Do you play as Nurgle himself? No, you always play as a legendary lord within that, sort of under that god. So Nurgle has Kugath Plaguefather, who's kind of the ultimate great unclean one. Khorne is led by Scarbrand. The god is something kind of above that, in the same way that I'm trying to think of. Urson. Urson is Kislev's god, so yeah, you don't play as him. He's a big part of the story, as are the 4 Chaos Gods.
Oh, okay. Someone asked regarding the changes to the Winds of Magic. So I mean about how you obtain them. In the sense, I'm guessing that now, instead of being capped at like 30 Winds of Magic, I believe, you can now just get whatever you have access to in your reserve. And the fact that I believe the reserve is capped to 100 now as well. So
Yeah,
that
we
kind of
want.
limits. Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to make the link between campaign and battle more important, because in the previous games you just get Winds of Magic and you wouldn't really think about it on the campaign map. So now each province has its own strength level, and that'll kind of charge or drain your supply, and then that supply is what you take into battle. So you might have, say, 60 points on the campaign map, but in the battle you only start with, say, 20, and you'll have 40 in the reserves, but that amount can drain into your supply that you can cast from. I think it's an improvement overall from what we had previously. It's not kind of reinventing the wheel, it just makes that kind of campaign to battle transition more kind of important. It gives you more to think about on the campaign map.
Somebody asked if the seduction mechanic from Slaanesh works on undead demons. Yes and no. You can seduce undead demons, but you're not actually seducing them. You're seducing the necromancer who raised them to give you control of that unit.
March for the Emperor.
Yeah, you can seduce any unit, I think, except for lords and heroes. But obviously there's a cap to it. You can't take the whole army. You can't. You have a budget as well, so you might be able to take like one high tier unit, but that means that's like the only thing you can take. You wouldn't then be able to take other units, so you've only got a certain amount to spend on it. So it's not like a game changer as such. Well, I guess it can be, depending on how big your army is and how big the enemy is.
Yeah, it's one thing I noticed, because there's a few things with it, right? Because obviously it costs you money, right, to actually seduce them. It's not just do it whenever you want. So there is a monetary aspect to it. And like you said, I think every single unit has a fixed amount of cost with it, and I believe there are ways to like reduce that amount.
Yeah, there's technologies and skills and things that will reduce the cost and increase the budget that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, well, if you're playing as someone who's not Slaanesh, you can increase that cost, so it's less likely for them to seduce your units if you're struggling to play against it.
Yeah, the one thing that I found as well was making sure that when I played against Slaanesh units, to not attack the unit that they seduced, so that when the fight was over, I could get my seduced unit back. Because if you leave it alive and it doesn't get, disbanded because of the amount of damage it takes after the fight, it comes back to you.
Ready to defend.
Yeah, if you can survive and win the battle and the unit survives, then yeah, you'll get it back.
Oh, wow. There's already an ogre army there. Okay. Well, I think we've taught Greasus a lesson, right? We've just taken his Great Hall. That was nice.
Yeah, that was well played.
Yeah.
I was expecting a bit of a disaster there, but you.
Whoa! What? Yeah.
Well, not because of you, but just the amount of red I was seeing on the map.
Hey, you said to me, don't worry, he's in the south, right? And I was like,
well,
okay, cool.
Storm Dragon.
But yeah, no, I think that was really well done.
Alright, let's buff this guy.
An upper hand, indeed.
Yeah, the only thing I've got to watch out for now is, let's see, will I think without
Two arms.
taking anything?
Sing Young's name.
Yeah, I've just got to now wait for the next Urson roar so I can go again and grab another soul, and afterwards hopefully zoom back to my territory.
A gift from the dragons.
Well, obviously I've got to make sure if I do that I've got to keep the rifts open. Although I guess technically I can teleport back first and then teleport to the soul to the realm. That'll work fine.
Emperor's boundless love.
Yeah, you can do that. There's no cooldown on the rift teleportation, but it does cost a little bit. But I'm sure you can afford that.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I noticed is when it comes to economy, and I don't know if it's intended, but I always think that there's kind of like two elements, or maybe more like three elements really, when it comes to like economy. So the one is the money that you're actually obtaining via your economy buildings, right? Your passive income trade, and that that's either green or red depending on the upkeep of your army. But then you have the second one, which I refer to as like the battle economy. So the money you get from either fighting battles or sacking settlements, and stuff like that. And I think a lot of times there are like certain factions that have to rely heavily on their battle economy, and not their building economy. And sometimes it looks like their economy is really bad because it's constantly in the red, but in reality it's fine because their battle economy keeps them going. One big I think example of this would be like the Wood Elves, for instance, where you get like massive amounts of money from sacking settlements, but your actual buildings for the most part don't give you that much until like the later parts of the game.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of corn buildings that don't give you as much money as you might expect, but actually you're going to get a lot more money if you're smashing up the place and burning down settlements and raiding, things like that. So yeah, it's something to look out for.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess it'd be interesting. I guess it'd be cool to have. So when you have like unique resources. So what would be in? I guess like say the grimoires that Zinch has, which it tells you how many you've got and how many you're losing per turn if you're like actually using them. I wonder if we'll ever get a feature like that for the economy. So it actually, obviously, it shows you on your treasury how much money you've got, but it doesn't show you how much you've obtained for that turn through like sacking and stuff. So it always shows red if your buildings aren't sustaining your upkeep.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's a really tricky one because, as you say, there's the amount that you're going to get the next turn and the amount that you've just got. So it's hard to show both simultaneously. So with like grimoires, you're seeing what you've earned that turn, but it means you can't really see how much you're producing through things like buildings, like how much you're going to get on the next turn. And that number can be kind of unreliable as well, because you might be demolishing a building or something, or constructing a new building that's going to add or multiply the amount that you get. So it's never like an exact science. It's trying to find that the best solution that's going to give the player the most information. Yeah, it is a tricky one.
Yeah, because I guess I guess unexperienced players might be like, oh wow, I've got all this money after they've like sacked a settlement for like 10,000 gold or something, and so they then recruit a bunch of units thinking they're gonna be able to afford keep those units like going, and then obviously the next turn it doesn't show that anymore. Now they're in like negative 10,000. They're like, oh, this is a problem.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think we've made good steps to sort of alleviate that in Warhammer 3, but yeah, it's still not perfect. And I think yeah, with future updates, we're gonna make more quality of life improvements, more improvements to UI and display of text and tooltips and things like that. So yeah.
I don't know if you know this, because this is a I guess the structure for the game, but someone's asking about core usage for the game for your CPU.
Yeah, I'm not really the person to ask, but our tools programmers and graphics programmers are obviously improving things with each game. I think the problem is, technology gets more complex. There's new graphics cards and new processors coming out all the time, so yeah, it's kind of like it's a never-ending battle of performance and optimizations. So there's been improvements, but then requirements change over time, so it's hard to keep up with that.
Okay, well, Jeff just walked straight in. I don't know if that's actually a change. So, yeah, it just... I have no idea why he just walked through my gate. Okay, well, Terracotta Sentinels, they're playing Bouncer right now. trying to keep the riffraff out.
They not destroy it? I'm not sure.
No, it's completely fine. So there is a bug. I don't know if you're aware of it, which is called like the gate bug, where if the gate is open and units engage in like combat with each other, what can happen is there's like an invisible wall. So even though the gate's open, units can't move through. But when combat's joined, the attack animations can drive a unit through that invisible wall, so they can get through. However, this one, they're just walking through. They're not. So I don't know if it's like Troy. So in Troy, what happens is if the gate's open, wait, they're doing it there too. Yeah, in Troy, if a gate's open, wait. Oh, this is straight up. I've never seen this before. The gates are just open.
Is it not?
Yeah, the gates are just open.
It's got debris on the ground that implies it's destroyed, but...
Yeah. So it's showing it being destroyed, but it's got health.
Yeah, I'll have to send that to the battle designer who will take it, because I don't think it's open.
Yeah, I've never seen that. That's a first. Because I fought on this. I've played Cathay a lot, and I've fought on these maps like multiple times, but I've never seen the gates open like this. I don't know what's caused it.
Someone in the chat has mentioned it could be the Zinch changing of the ways where they open the gates.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that, because they actually. I think this was one of the cool things that I really liked with the Zinch mechanics is Zinch actually uses those mechanics. Like, it's not player only. Like, Zinch will do it. He'll mess with you.
Yeah, I think in this case, when a faction uses the open gates, it doesn't actually destroy them. It just physically opens them. So.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, someone he just. Oh. Where is Be'lakor? He is in the Forge of Souls. So, speaking of Be'lakor, obviously there had to be like a main bad guy for the campaign. Could you tell us a little bit about why you decided to go with Be'lakor?
Sure, I think we had a lot of feedback in Warhammer 2 about both in the main game and in some of the content like Tomb Kings, where you had a kind of narrative and you had an enemy, but you weren't actually seeing that enemy. So there was a story and a driving force, but you weren't fighting against anything physical. We really wanted to address that, and I think Be'lakor is kind of the perfect antagonist for this game. He really ties the whole narrative together, and he's, you know, the first Demon Prince. He's very key to the narrative. He fits perfectly. So, yeah, we could have gone with what we kind of did in Warhammer 2, where we had this villain who was in the movies and the narrative and the events, but didn't actually show up. But he's like a perfect candidate for someone who you can actually fight against. And as everyone knows, I'm not spoiling anything here by saying that he's unlockable at the end, which means you can fight with him. We didn't make him, someone was asking earlier, we didn't make him a full playable legendary lord because, yeah, the narrative revolves around him, so it wouldn't, if he was on the map as his own faction, that kind of just immediately cancels the narrative, which isn't something we really wanted to do. But yeah, we're definitely not finished with him, so if you're expecting to play more with him, yeah, watch this space.
Cool. And what about Urson as the god in need, as it were?
Yeah, we needed a reason for factions to go into hell, as I mentioned at the start of the stream, and
yeah,
he was really perfect opportunity for that. You know, it gives Kislev a motivation. They want to go and save him. Gives all the bad factions, the evil factions, as it were, reasons as well. You know, Nurgle wants to make this ultimate plague, and he's using a god. It really just ties everything together neatly. And yeah, he's a really core component, as is Be'lakor.
Okay. So Stannis, regarding a notification, honestly, there most likely was when Zinch basically switches a settlement. There is a notification for that. I just probably was not paying attention.
Yeah, you do get events for that, but there are a lot of events at this stage of the game when there's so many factions fighting amongst each other.
Yeah. So I think. Oh. I can't remember if open the gates lasts for more than one turn, but I think if it does, when we go back there probably will be like an icon saying that the gates are open.
Yeah, I think you have a where you've got like the wall icon when you select the settlement, it'll show up there, and also on the pre-battle screen as well.
Yeah. Vampire counts being my favorite faction. I wonder how they would interact with Nurgle. Do undead/zombies suffer attrition from plagues? From a lore point of view, Nurgle's actually one of the worst matchups for the undead because the undead are basically the perfect breeding ground for pox and contagion. And so in the lore, often what happens is Nurgle's normally the one to fight against the undead. We saw that during the end times with Isabella, for instance, being possessed by a Nurgle demon to counter Vlad, and then I believe there was, I think it was Zacharias, who got quite an unusual gift from Chaos, which was, he was called the Everliving, and basically brought life, and was basically the complete counterpart to the undead. So if undead ever came into his aura zone, they would basically just start disintegrating and die. It's one of the ways that Vlad died during the end times, but luckily he had the Von Carstein ring, so it came back to life. But how does it work in the game, Ark, regarding...
Yeah, they still get plagues as normal. They can suffer attrition, the same as anyone else does. Same from corruption as well. But yeah, they have ways of mitigating it, obviously. If they push up their vampiric corruption, that pushes down Nurgle corruption, and they have ways of reducing the plague's potency and chance of it spreading to other armies or settlements. So yeah, kind of the same as everyone else, really.
I know it hasn't come up, but I see the question a lot, so I wanted to ask you while I've got you here. So obviously with buildings, there's a very limited amount of structures available in each one. Right? Minor settlements only have 3, not including the actual main settlement. When it comes to like ports of these, you basically only have two, right? Because the capital and then the port one takes up a slot as well. And if it's in a very like aggressive area or hostile area, that even goes down to one because you normally have to build a garrison building. Is there any reason why the port building itself isn't just put into like a hybrid capital building, so port settlements and normal settlements have the same amount of building slots available to them?
Yeah, it's actually something we did experiment with very early on in Warhammer 3, is getting rid of the port building and just having one settlement building. We found that the ideal solution is to kind of like make the port building actually more special and important. And that kind of gives you a bit of gameplay there where you've still got the settlement and you've still got the port separately, and they just give you different effects. By combining them, you kind of we've sort of found that it was watering down the sort of total effects that you got from it, and technically it was quite complex as well. I'll spare you the details, but yeah, just didn't really work out. But yeah, I think making the port more kind of important was good, and I think also it adds a bit of strategy to the map. You know, if these ports are useful, they give you actual worthwhile benefits, then it makes sense that you'd attack a port over a nearby settlement.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for the feedback, because it was something that I've seen like pop up a lot, and I never had an answer. But it's cool to know that you guys have actually experimented with it and just messed around with it and decided not to in the end. I was doing this fight and I was like, wait, these guys are aggressive. They're attacking me. As in they attacked my army, which initiated the battle. And so I was so confused as to why they weren't coming like towards me. And then I was listening to you answer my question, and then I realized afterwards that they've got a Noblar thrower, and they've just been like bombarding me with artillery attacks. I'm like, oh no.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I need to pay more attention.
Someone's asking is that an Empire captain? Yes, it is, because this is a Caravan force, which you get as Cathay. So when you're sending out the Caravan, you'll get all these different events, and one of them might be, do you want to take on this lone warrior from faraway lands, and he'll join in the army, which is cool.
Yeah, so far I've had a High Elf Noble, an Ogre Hunter, and then, the Empire Captain. It's been pretty interesting.
I am prepared.
I like the fact as well that you do have the option to tell them to bugger off if you don't want them for any reason.
Yeah, I think there's benefits to doing that. Maybe some money or something like that.
I'll end that fight before that firestorm hits my own units. Uniformations for more folk than Bretonnia cavalry, weapon switches for Black Orc, etc. Any chance we could see some of those in Warhammer 3?
Yeah, I touched upon this earlier. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. Unit formations are something that we've experimented with before. It's just a case of, how many different things do we want the player to be managing in a battle. There can be, 20 units and spells and abilities across multiple characters. It's just finding that balance. So yeah, it's not something that's off the table, but not something that we just hand out to every unit.
Can you level the Empire Captain? Unfortunately, you can't.
Yeah, I think it's just a sort of standard unit.
Yeah. Normally the frames, well, right now, there's the frame counter in the top right-hand corner, but obviously this is an early access build, so there is still optimization being taken into consideration. So there are sometimes like certain effects that will cause more resources to be used than others. But obviously CA is still working on that, and I think the specs will be given out like close to the release date. I've currently got a 28 super. Any reason mounts and immortal skills still cost a skill point? Immortal feels too important, making it a tax. While mounts already cost upkeep to use, can we expect this to be changed at some point and make these skills become free? Well, obviously, I do understand what you're saying, but do keep in mind that the skill cap is now increased to 50 rather than at 40. What's the reason for it not to like actually cost a skill point? I guess.
Yeah, increasing the cap was definitely
Cathay Eternal.
influenced by that. But yeah, it's kind of a contentious one. Like people have different opinions on it. I've always thought that it's quite a cool feature to actually unlock the mount and get that kind of feedback, and it's like a proactive thing that you do. But I know some people would rather it just be kind of like an automatic thing. I kind of like the idea of being able to not choose a mount and choose something else, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, we're still taking feedback on it. It's something that could change in the future for sure. But yeah, that's how it is at the moment.
That's what I wanted to ask. So I don't know if it's just me, or it looks like you have redesigned how replenishment works. Is that true?
I think replenishment is the same. I could be wrong. Attrition is definitely different, if that is what you're thinking of.
No. So for instance, if you look at Mao Ying right now, obviously I only get 6 units replenished, and it will take 11 turns to get back to full strength. I go into well, that's bugged. Hold on. Give me a second. We're having technical difficulties. Speaking of skill points for mounts, many lords have a variety of mounts to choose, but it's suboptimal to pick early ones instead of late OP dragon. How about 1-point mount skill that unlocks different mounts? Character.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. Yeah, I totally get that. As Entropic Dream said, yeah, players might not want to spend a skill point to get, waste a point on a horse when they can get a dragon later. So yeah, it's a tough one. But yeah, we're definitely taking feedback on board for that.
And so mounts can be changed instantly on the fly, is that correct? Just like items can now?
They still have the turn cooldown because they're slightly more involved than a ancillary, because you're kind of you're changing the upkeep and things like that, so it's more involved.
Okay. Right. So obviously I have here I replenish 6 Jade Warriors while just not in the encamp stance. Now normally in game 2, if you go into the encamp stance, that would add replenishment, but obviously as you can see here it doesn't. But what I've noticed is in game 2, if you were in neutral or enemy territory, you were basically capped to how much you could replenish in the encamp stance. Whereas now, I don't think you are capped anywhere on the map.
I think, yeah, you're right. We made some small tweaks, and it wasn't like a complete rework. It was more just to make it more understandable. And there were some, they're not bugs as such, but it's more like kind of unexpected how it would behave, and I think now we've made it a bit clearer in what you get. It's easier to know like when I should encamp, and the text is a bit clearer, so I think that's how it works now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure replenishment is capped at 50% in terms of like the increase or the bonus, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, like I actually like it because one of the problems, well, it wasn't really a problem, but what you would basically have to do is you couldn't realistically rely on the encamp stance to like heal up if you took like a real big kick in, because it was capped to such a small amount. I think it was like 10%, so it would take quite a long time to get back on your feet. Whereas now, because it's no longer has that limitation in neutral and enemy territory, getting that extra replenishment is actually a lot more impactful. So, and especially with the increase to like 50 skill points. So now I normally kind of stayed away from the blue tree personally, but now it's actually worth it for me to go in there because quite a few lords have access to replenishment in that blue tree, and I find it really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean the map kind of the campaign game sort of made us look at replenishment more closely because of the amount of attrition that you can take potentially from all the corruption types, and that's
Storm Dragon.
because of the rifts basically. So
Yeah.
that really
Witness
brought that
my
to the forefront.
power.
Someone's asked, because I know the answer to this. So they've asked about when you confederate with a new faction, the ability to respec the skill points that the AI have put into those skills. I don't. That's not a feature that's made it into Game 3 as of yet. Is there a reason why?
More of a technical thing more than anything. I mean, it's technically feasible, but it's a lot of work, and you know, putting that in means something else has to come out because you only have so many hours to make this game. But yeah, we totally get that it's something that players are requesting. So yeah, it's not something that won't ever be in the game. Put it that way.
Okay. So obviously, there's a lot of questions that are normally regarding, you know, if things are in the game or if things aren't, how come? What is the best way that, or what's the best way to be visible that the community can be to try and inform yourself and the rest of the team regarding, you know, what features they're hoping for or like, and a way to like give you guys visibility on what they're looking for. Is it like the Total War forums, or is it other like third party places that you guys check out every now and then?
Yeah, honestly, I think anywhere is good because there's always someone from Creative Assembly looking at that particular place. The forums is probably the most common, but you know, we're all looking at the subreddit and we all watch YouTube videos and Twitch videos, Twitch streams. So yeah, you know, it might not, the person responsible or the person who can fix certain thing might not read that particular comment or post or whatever, but that will make its way to them because someone else will see it. So yeah, I mean, just anywhere is good. Anywhere public, we will definitely see it.
Cool. Considering the battle AI, I'm currently experienced that. Oh, where's it gone? Total War Warhammer 2 AI just runs left in the beginning of a field battle for no reason. It seems it partially ignores my units just to run to a certain point of the map. Is it just derping, or is there a reason for this? Yeah, right. I know what they're talking about. There's in Game 2. There's a common map, which has a few variants. But essentially what the AI does is it deploys in one location, but it always moves its units to a different location to set up after the battle started. But I'm not sure if you know, if you're able to answer that one regarding AI's, I guess, like generic behavior, like why it does that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to say with much confidence without seeing the actual battle. I was just to take a stab at, you know, like a shot in the dark. Maybe there's like a hill there, or like a very subtle hill that they might be trying to defend. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I need to see that in more detail.
Fair enough. Oh, no, that was easy. That was a very small ogre camp there. By the way, I don't know if this is the case or if you know, but obviously ogre camps get bigger. They seem to act like
Yeah.
Well, they're like pop-up settlements, if you will, with their own tiers and stuff. Do you know if the settlement itself, the defensive settlement, gets are there different maps to show it that it's built up, or is it just like army buffs to that garrison?
So there's just one map per kind of environment of the map. So you know, one like mountainous map, one desert map, and so on. But yeah, you can recruit units into it. You can upgrade the defenses. You can get more supplies, which allows you to build more. And you'll get, we talked about them earlier, the army abilities. They unlock as you progress through the chain, so they're more powerful as you go.
Cool. Don't know if it was answered. But we'd be allowed to download the game. Oh yeah, I believe it's like 2 days before, so on the 15th. I'm not sure at what time, but you will be able to pre-download the game. I'd like to ask how you think about fatigue for Game 3. It doesn't seem really impactful, and most of the time battles we see on stream, players don't even care about running all the time or get a rest. Right.
Yeah, I think it's something that we need to improve in the UI, and like explain like what effects it's actually having, because I think sometimes it can be quite important. But yeah, it's definitely less important than it was in the historical games, just due to the nature of Warhammer, I think. But yeah, we're making steps across the whole game to make these kind of more hidden effects more visible to the player.
Yeah, I think as a player who plays quite a lot of the game, obviously I didn't know about the actual like the flat numbers of what happens if your units are like fatigued and stuff. But if you actually look at the flat numbers, like the difference between being like fresh and exhausted is like massive. It's quite a substantial knock to the stats. But I think one of the reasons why you don't really see players playing around it is mainly due to the fact that it's normally when you're on even footing on unit count to the AI, it's normally not in your interest to have units in reserve, because especially in Game 2 the map was quite open, and so it was very easy for the enemy to flank you and get us around on you if you weren't engaging all of their units with your units to counter them. And then vice versa. If they didn't have enough units to surround you, and you had way more many units, it was way better for you to fully surround them, rather than leave units in reserve and allow them to stay fresh and stuff like that. So that's why you don't often see it used in gameplay.
Move as wind.
That being said, there are a few battles where it's come down to a very close fight where I've basically lost a huge amount of my units, and I've only got very few left, and the AI's only got a very few of them left. In which case, I will actually allow my units to replenish and get fresh, so they can fight better. For a few reasons. One, obviously, so they perform better, but two, for their leadership as well. Because I believe being tired either affects it, or it makes it so they perform worse, so they take more damage quicker, which then impacts how much leadership they lose. So I do use it a few times, but normally it's just way more efficient to have your units actively doing something than not. Hey, Bark, I'm a shark. Unfortunately, we were only talking about the content in Game 3 that is dropping on the 17th today. I'm sure there will be like another opportunity to talk about, like Tomb Kings from Game 2 and like other factions. So sorry, but you're gonna have to wait with that one. Some streamers reported that it's harder to defend a walled minor settlement than unwalled, making the garrison upgrade detrimental to your defense capability. AI tends to siege, cause attrition longer when it's walled. Will this be addressed before release? Well.
Right. Besieging settlements and the attrition. The problem we had before in Warhammer 2 is you'd have a holdout time, and then say 4 turns, and once those turns had elapsed, the attrition was very spiky, so you'd literally take 50% casualties across the whole army, and then 50% after that. So if you had 100 men, it'd go to 50 to 25 and so on. So really that first turn after the holdout was really what kind of just turned the battle entirely, which kind of meant the kind of optimal strategy was to go through those holdout times and then 1 extra turn, and that was quite black and white. So now what will happen is the damage will immediately start but be very small and just tick up over time, so maybe like 10% each turn, and that gives you more kind of variability on when you'd want to attack. I think personally that's a good thing. Like, we've had good feedback about it. I think there's been a bit of concern because taking out the holdout time is quite a big change, but I think that the core problem was that first turn of massive damage, which hopefully we've addressed. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what more people think of it.
Yeah, because I like that change. But in regards to that actual question, I believe that they were referring to something slightly different. So essentially, you saw this. You actually saw this with Three Kingdoms, mainly, which was the minus elements basically were like pseudo choke point maps, where you only had like 3 entrances and there was no way to circumnavigate that. That was it. And so what happened is you were able to concentrate your forces in those places, and there was no way for you to get around into their flank. So for instance, if you look at this map here, you've got these points here, and you can put units here, but you can't climb up, right, as the attacker. And so you've got these choke point that is you have to come through this choke point, right? Like there's no getting around it. Whereas in what happens in minus elements is as you upgrade them to level 3 and get a garrison building level 3 on there, they become a siege settlement where they have their own walls, and the walls, obviously, you can just climb up the walls. And so what can sometimes happen is you only want to upgrade your garrison to level 2 and not 3, because it's actually easier to defend on certain settlement maps that don't have walls on them because of these choke points.
Yeah.
And so it kind of feels counterintuitive because you're upgrading, but you're actually getting a disadvantage as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the map layout itself.
True.
The 3K maps are very different to the Warhammer maps. But yeah, hopefully that's not such an issue in this game. But yeah, we'll definitely be looking at that feedback. The siege change, the map game, maps, the battle gameplay in general is a massive change. So yeah, it's something that we'll be looking at over time and over the coming months for sure.
Yeah, I think that's something that I was very aware of when coming into 3, because immediately I think it's very easy to look at. I think I came into 3 and there were certain things that I was just like, oh, okay, and it's very easy to be critical, I guess, about it. But then what I started to think about afterwards was like, these are very big changes, right? Like some of the mechanics of the game that you've changed are like vastly different. And obviously, I guess you guys have to, you have to wait for that feedback from people to be like, okay, we've made this big change. We think it looks good. We're hoping you got, the people playing it do. And then now, once you give it out to the public, you've got to wait for the feedback and see if people do like it, if they don't like it, or if there's 1 or 2 things that you just have to make some slight adjustments to. Because obviously we saw this with Troy. I think it was Troy, where obviously you made a big massive change to how, for instance, the resources worked, right, with multiple different resources, and obviously it's going to take time to balance out that system once you've actually done it for the first time.
The Emperor's chosen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not afraid to make big changes, but we're very much in the camp of let's get feedback all along the way, you know, from prototyping to developing to actual release, because yeah, this game's going to have a lot more content to come and many more patches and changes. So yeah, hopefully we can perfect it over time if it's not already good on launch.
Ooh, Greasus now. I didn't realize Greasus has only got like 9 settlements. I think if I yeah, if I continue to to chip away at his infrastructure, obviously it's legendary, so he's got quite the handicap on keeping his armies going. But he's gonna have to, you know, start either taking more territory to get his economy back up and running, or he's gonna have to start disbanding, or he'll just lose armies and won't be able to replenish them, which good with either way. Yeah, he's taken quite a hit so far. I like it.
Someone in chat is asking if the Steam achievements are the same as the Xbox ones. Yeah, all the achievements are the same across all the platforms.
Yeah, level 50 is maximum, yeah. Will you be adding or allowing for changes to the Demon Prince campaign to allow for a female feminine Demon Prince? It is meant to be a self-insert, but it doesn't. It's really not feel that way for many female players. Can you make an option in campaign start or with some parts?
Well, the Demon Prince is, although it is a character that you can create, it is a kind of, I'm not sure what the word is, but he was originally a Kislev prince, and that's something that is in the narrative and in the prologue. So yeah, it wouldn't make sense for them to be a woman or a female demon prince, I guess is the phrase. But yeah, I mean, maybe something that we could look at in the future. But yeah, for this character, it doesn't really make sense.
I think even with, because regarding that, obviously, with, I know there are Slanesh body parts that have that whole ambiguous element to them as well, that the Demon Prince can obtain. Or at least I've seen a Demon Prince that has that, which I've fought against.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too deep into this, but yeah, it's arguable if demons even have genders. I mean, they're very androgynous, and yeah, who's to say what gender they are?
Oh man, guys, all the it's with them and scrap launchers. They're far too effective. I only say that because they're using it against me, but it's fair. Just like if Ikit Claw nukes you, you're allowed to complain about it and then love it when you actually have access to it. Does diplomacy attributes work better in 3? They felt useless in 2, especially at higher difficulties. Yeah, Mark's actually explained this. So, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But they've actually taken a mechanic from 3 Kingdoms that basically had the way that AI thinks about decisions is based upon like a wider variety of influences. So it could be, you know, helping you could make another faction like them less, stuff like that. But and also the potential threat of your faction also is taken into consideration. And all of these things basically then influence the AI's decision making regarding diplomacy and how they think about if they will accept something or how much it will cost you in order for them to accept something. One of the big changes that I really appreciate now is just the fact that you've actually got now a value number. So whereas before in game 2 it was just you know, the likely, basically it told you no, maybe, which also meant no or yes. Now it actually has a value, so you can be like, oh, okay, right, there's no chance of me doing this, or okay, they won't do it unless I give them like a significant amount of money, but I know that if I get that money, I can actually make them do this. So it's much better now because you actually get way better feedback regarding, you know, what you need to do in order to make it a diplomacy action work.
Yeah, that sounds alright. Someone asked about the simultaneous turns. Are they only in the new campaign modes, or in the normal campaign mode? I assume by new campaign mode you mean Darkness and Disharmony and Something Rotten in Kislev, which are two sort of mini campaigns that we've created. You can play simultaneous turns in all three modes, so in the regular campaign and in the mini campaigns.
Lead vouchers. I remember the first time I got to use them, I was very impressed with how effective they are. They are ridiculously good. They straight up shred units. It's like having it's kind of like having a mobile organ gun. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think they might be my favourite ogre unit.
Yeah, like the fact that the cannonball like literally just passes straight through the units. It's insane. By the way, Mark.
Hello.
We have, I believe, for our lifetime.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I'm pretty happy running about the game. And trying to...
No,
the great thing
sorry?
There's so much content in this game and so much to talk about. It just makes it very easy to just ramble on.
Yeah, I know. I only realized because I got a message from my girlfriend saying, I thought you were only streaming for 3 hours.
Yeah, we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah.
I do want to answer this question. If I play the campaign with 6 players, will the campaign end if one of us gets wiped out? No, you can continue playing. And if one player drops for whatever reason, they can rejoin later on. So yeah, it's like maximum flexibility there, which is really cool.
Nice. Are there any more questions, or at least things that you would like to feed back to the community while you've got them here?
Just that the game is out on the 17th, and yeah, hope everyone is looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, Mark. I really appreciate it. Thank you for asking all these questions. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks a lot. I had a lot of fun.
Cool. Okay, guys. So we're gonna be wrapping up here now. Yeah, if you have any questions for myself, you can find me on my Twitch channel, which is just below the webcam now. I will be streaming again tomorrow, so you can catch me there on my channel. And I will probably be continuing this campaign, although I've only got like 18 more turns left. Yeah, thank you all for being here, and as always, bye for now. Catch you guys later.
See ya.